It's now time for the AM News here on the AM Show. My name is Pakwesi Shandov. So, very first story, 4 teacher unions have declared an indefinite strike over government's failure to pay up cost of living allowance. Tewu, Nat, Nagrat and CCT have for months now been demanding that 20% of their basic salary be paid them as COLA. This is to help mitigate the impact of the rising cost of living on them. But after the June 30 deadline was exhausted, the workers have withdrawn these services both in and outside the classroom. Manuel Cranton has more.
These are angry workers in Ghana's educational sector who say they will no longer endure the current harsh economic conditions without any cushioning from government. They want to be paid a cost of living allowance of up to 20% of their basic salary, a request government has failed to meet. To press home their demands, they say they are compelled to abandon their post. Thomas Musa is General Secretary of Ghana National Association of Teachers.
By the high level of inflation in the country, the incessant skyrocketing prices of fuel, goods and services have eroded the already woefully so-called salary increase granted us. We are very much appalled at the inaptitude of the government relative to our call for COLA. We have severally, on different platforms and times, made this call, which fell on deaf ears of government. We have decided to embark on a strike action effective today.
Behind these demands are real people who took up the teaching job to make impact. Many of them, like Vida Sapabil, are regretting.
Everybody is struggling. Now it is better. 2 months ago, I was buying 1 tomatoes for 2 cedi. So if I prepare bankung and I want to grind pepper to eat, I have to go and buy 1 tomatoes for 2 cedi. I regret taking to teaching. I have classmates. After SSS, they didn't continue their education. They went straight to the army. One of them is a WO right now, as I speak. And he's taking 8,000 plus at the end of every month. I have gone to training college. I've gone to the university, done my first degree, done my master's, and I'm still roaming around 2,000. How do I survive? They call for old school meeting. I don't go. The living conditions are 2 different things. When they are come, they are excited, they are talking, and maybe they bring along food and drinks and they are chilling, more relaxed. I can be there, but I won't be relaxed. So I don't even go at all.
Another teacher at the Akrabong Basic School in the Central Region, Amos Amwako, feels neglected by the state, which contracted him to help build future leaders.
I sometimes run my household on loans, and it is not a wise way of living. Because if you are going to take a financial facility or a loan, it should be used for developmental activity. But you go for loans and then you spend it at home. Then you pay interest on it. Then your existence is not even profitable. You don't even feel like you are even existing. If a better job comes, why not? Because a graduate teacher taking home around 2,000. When you do second degree, GES will tell you that they don't recognize it. And the cost of training, courses at the universities are very expensive now. Somebody goes through to do a second degree, and you tell the person that the second degree is not needed at the pre-tertiary level. So then the cost of entering into that course, as you will not get any productivity out of it. So if a better job comes, why not?
Like Vida and Amos, all workers in the educational sector in NAT, Tewu, CCT and Nagrat have been called to proceed on strike, effective immediately.
By this, we are informing the general public that we are withdrawing all our services in all the pre-tertiary education space. Yes. These include teaching and non-teaching staff.
The only thing that will get them back to work is the payment of their COLA. Manuel Cranting, Joy News, Accra.
Meanwhile, stakeholders of education in the Cape Coast metropolis have been meeting to fashion out ways to improve educational outcomes in the city. The educational DEBA will afford parents, teachers, academics, and all those who matter in education in Cape Coast to think about solutions to improve the performances of the schools and the students in Cape Coast. Addressing the DEBA Cape Coast Metropolitan Director of Education, Dr. Brenda Asari, indicated heads of the various schools have signed performance contracts and they should be supported to deliver their obligations and that contract.
The stakeholders say they want to do what will help shore up the educational outcomes in the metropolis, knowing very well that the Cape Coast metropolis has existed for a very long time. Cape Coast Metropolitan Director of Education, Dr. Brenda Asari, at the DEBA called for support for the heads of schools who have signed performance contracts so they will be able to discharge the obligations under the contract. Parents as major stakeholders to rise to the occasion.
You are signing with your employer, so it means that I do not perform, then maybe I have to go in for sanction, or maybe I have to be given some kind of remediation. And then you are saying that I want to be here. So at the end of the day, you will be assessed based on the performance, the contract that you have signed. It's like an agreement between two parties, and then you are saying that I want to do this. I have to get to this level. And the other party, a contract is signed between not for just one person, two parties. So the other will say, I also provide you with the things that you need so that you will be able to do what is expected of us.
A senior research fellow at the Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, Alfred Ampamensa, called for a conducive environment for the achievement of the educational outcomes by the provision of infrastructure.
Infrastructure, the data that was provided indicates that we don't have enough. We don't have enough at all. Because imagine, apart from the KG level, all the other indicators for primary, JHS, and then SHS for class sizes actually exceeded the nationally acceptable levels. And this indicates that we have overcrowded classrooms. They don't have enough classrooms. More, there are other facilities. Something that struck me had to do with the number of bunk beds that they need for the senior high schools. They don't have enough. Okay, if children, so I'm thinking in terms of, so if these children are supposed to be in the boarding house and they don't have enough beds, how do they sleep? Where do they sleep? So these are questions that...
The Director of Socio-Economic Development at the Diocese of Cape Coast, he indicated a lot needs to be done to improve the fortunes of education to benefit the indigenes of Cape Coast.
Basically, Cape Coast, you have all the schools, but nothing is growing up. And how many of even the indigenes in Cape Coast benefit from some of these schools? So it was mentioned that teachers apply to come and teach here only to better their level, get masters or MPhil or PhD, and then they exit. So it has become a hatchland where you get better SHS results and they move out. A hatchland where teachers better their certificates and they move out. And so the effect on the indigenes, those who live here, are not seen. And so if you like, go to the typical coast areas. Education level is very low.
The stakeholders pledged their support to contribute their quota to ensure that performances of schools and students in the metropolis improve. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenya Akon, Cape Coast.
Now, it has become commonplace for Ghanaians to rely on the sun to support daily dose of vitamin D, but it's emerging that we may have overestimated the glare of yellow sphere. Research by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has found vitamin D deficiency is high among the adult population despite abundant sunlight. More in this report.
The other metal where we was every day we spend 4 or 5 hours where we. I thought I cried friends that the whole day cried on. Let me give you a news but we are 6-7 hours here. But now every day we are man spend 4 to 5 hours.
Vitamin D, crucial for the normal functioning of the human body. It is produced through skin exposure to sunlight and also through diet. Although Ghana is located in the tropics where sunlight is abundant, factors such as culture, diet, skin pigmentation, among others, can influence optimization of vitamin D utilization.
We all know vitamin D, also called the sunshine vitamin. So just by the name, we have the propensity to think that because we have a lot of sunshine in Ghana and within the sub-region, it means we should have enough of vitamin D. But when you read papers from other areas, other tropical areas, you also realize that they were experiencing vitamin D deficiency. So we just want to test the hypothesis to see that if we have a lot of sun in Ghana throughout, then what is our status? Do we have enough? And more also, considering the role that vitamin D plays in our day-to-day life, vitamin D is very important for so many things, for the normal functioning of the immune system.
The scientists, led by Dr. Samuel Sechi of the Department of Molecular Medicine, sought to measure the relationship between sun exposure and vitamin D status in 3 geographical parts among healthy Ghanaian population.
We picked 500 from the northern, southern sector, middle belt, and from 7 regions in Ghana. So we classify the 7 regions into this 3 sub-units of northern sector, middle belt, and southern sector. So we pick 700 apparent healthy blood donors, young, healthy. In fact, the average age was between 30 and 45 years. That was the average age of the people within the 500. We took their blood. There were people who have been screened to make sure that they were fit to donate blood, and we took some of those blood to run our vitamin D. And then we also gave them questionnaire where we asked them about their lifestyle, about the kind of food they eat, how much time they spend outside. Then we also measured some intermediates. Remember I told you vitamin D is not alone. Vitamin D always goes with calcium, it goes with albumin, parathyroid hormone, and some pro-inflammatory cytokines, because it's in a web of cycle where they are interdependent on each other. So we measured all these things among them. And surprisingly, we realized that we have vitamin D, the prevalence of 46.9 prevalence of vitamin D deficiency among the general population. But we should make conscious efforts and spend ample time in the sun. Because it seems like the sun is here, but we are running away from the sun. Everybody is in his air-conditioned room. Everybody, we are in our coats. Then also, we are not taking enough. Even though the amount we get from the dietary is small, we should make conscious effort to take them. Then also, we should get what we call supplements, dietary supplements. We can have, most of the super multivitamin capsules that we have in the market have some form of vitamin D. But the quantity that we need around between 10 to 20 milligrams of vitamin D daily. That's we cannot get that quantity just from the one we get from super multivitamin capsules. So we can get solely vitamin D. That this is a vitamin D supplement I'm getting, not the one that is in combination with other.
Now, the Medical and Dental Council is worried about the decline in human resource to monitor and track the performance of medical practitioners in the country. According to the regulator, this challenge has become more pervasive as the number of medical practitioners in the country increases. As part of the Medical and Dental Council's strategy to improve the quality and safety of practitioners' care, the Council has produced a policy document on practitioners' stamp, name tags and appropriate apparel. Tasha Michelle was at the launch and files this report read to you.
Following increasing reports that some persons have been passing themselves off as medical or dental practitioners, Chairman of the Council, Paul Kwame Nyame, reiterated the need to identify all practitioners registered with and licensed by the Council.
We cannot talk about the scope of practice for physician assistants without talking about the scope of practice for the other practitioners. So do not be surprised if in the very near future you hear of a beginning in the discussion for the scope of practice for doctors and dentists. You will be surprised if you sit in the council during the disciplinary process to hear what some doctors do beyond their capacity. You'll be surprised to hear of what young practitioners without much experience in their belt, how they rush around to go and do cesarean sections and other surgeries. You'll be surprised to know somebody who has been trained in a certain area. I mean, let me use this just for an example. As an eye surgeon and so on, and decides that for some reason or the other, he will start playing with prostates. So we think it is necessary and important and in the interest of the country and of our constituents that the scope of practice is also constructed for dentists and doctors.
Speaking with Joy News, Deputy Minister of Health, Alhaji Mahama Asay-Seni, acknowledged the efforts of the Medical and Dental Council to ensure the safety of patients.
If you're not healthy, nothing goes on. And because we have various agencies carrying out health from different angles, it's very good that we have come out with this kind of documentation so that we will guide the practice of every agency. So this is the Medical and Dental Council, and they regulate the practice of all these people, doctors, dentists, and physicians. And it is better some of these instruments come out and spell the role of each of these institutions so that there's no conflict.
Now, Partnership for Poverty Reduction, a non-governmental organization in the Northern region, has supported 200 women from 4 districts with farm inputs. The NGO, established by Member of Parliament for Yendi Farouk Aliyu Mahama, will empower women and the youth economically. Correspondent Martina Bugri reports.
The NGO, since its establishment in 2017, has supported over 1,000 women with farm inputs in the Yendi constituency. But this year, it has extended its support to 4 other districts aside the Yendi municipality. The new districts are Pandai, Bimbula, Tatale, and Sabuba. The items distributed included knapsack sprayers, weedicide, pesticide, Wellington boots, and cutlasses. At a ceremony to present the items, the Member of Parliament for Yendi, Alhaji Farouk Aliyu Mahama, said he recognizes the critical role women play in the agricultural sector, therefore the support. The MP said his vision is to see a new Yendi.
Women of Yendi are very, very important to me. Not only Yendi, every woman and every mother is very, very important. The NGO is an NGO that comes to the vision, and they say leadership is about vision. You look and project yourself and see where you want to take your people. When I left the offices of Ghana Cocoa Board, and I made my pledge to leave the legacy of my late father, the first Muslim Dagomba vice president, to a vision of a vice president from Dagomba, specifically Yendi. I felt that there was an uncompleted vision of my late father, and that is to see Yendi go beyond. And that is how come when I decided to contest, I set myself to a vision that is to see Yendi in the next 8 years, because the traditional capital of Yendi has the Yana, and Yana is the overlord, and Yendi must be the beneficiary of the people of Dagbo. And that is why when I decided to be the Member of Parliament, I set up a goal, and that is the new Yendi city, with the support of the President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the overlord of Dagbo, myself, the MC, the party chairman, all the people of Dagbo, particularly Yendi, are trying to see the vision that we want to see. And by 2020, 2028 or 2030, Yendi will be a place that everybody will want to come and visit, inshallah, with the support of the people of Yendi. And that is how come we set up an NGO and bring people and have competent people. That is with the support of my CEO Bash and the deputy and Mr. Amin, very soon we are coming. This year is an action year for PPR.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Partnership for Poverty Reduction, Bashiru Musa, said the support is to re-echo the MP's commitments to making women empowerment a priority in his tenure.
This farm input support is to re-echo the MP commitment to make women empowerment a priority in his tenure as MP. Agriculture is a major area our people are into, and this intervention, we believe, will develop the interest of our women to venture more into farming, which is a male-dominated activity.
The Deputy Agricultural Director for the Yendi Municipality, Fennel Yolson Jakpasa, said the support has come at the right time and would also help in the planting for food and jobs.
We know the Yendi Municipal is highly endowed with agricultural potentials. One of the important requirements is inputs. These items are coming at the right time to support rural women and also to achieve the planting for food and job agenda. Women participation in agriculture is very important in the value chain. Therefore, I entreat recipients of these items to make judicious use of these items to increase productivity in all the crops.
That's all for the news. The show continues with Benjamin and Bernice. Welcome back on the AM show. It's good to have you this wet Tuesday morning, wherever you are, though. Try to stay safe. But speaking of the weather, especially as it's pummeling out there, we have Joshua Asamoah, who is a senior forecaster at the GMED. He'll give us scope on what to expect in the course of today. Joshua, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Great. Do tell, we're already experiencing rain here in the Greater Accra region, at least some parts here in Kokomlimle. It's pelting hard. What can we expect in Accra and beyond by way of weather today?
All right, so for most parts of the country, it's quite cloudy. Yesterday we had a rainstorm that tracked over the northern portions of Ghana, and that has left some cloudiness behind.
Joshua, I beg your pardon. Just speak up a little for us, please.
So I'm saying that yesterday we had some rainstorm that tracked over the northern parts of the country. It's now towards the western portion of the continent, but it has left some cloudiness behind. And so areas in the western side of the northern sector, that is the upper west and parts of the Savannah region, will continue to experience the cloudy conditions with pockets of slight rain. The impacts there will be very low. That's because most of the heavy or intense parts of the storm has already left the country. But for us in southern Ghana, we're seeing some cloud developments towards the east. So areas in the Greater Accra, Volta regions are already engulfed by this rain clouds. That's what is producing some rainfall over parts of Greater Accra this morning. It's not going to give any high impact rainfall along the coast, but generally it will just be a low impact rainfall. Where we're expecting that the impact will be higher or medium will be areas in the southwestern portion of Ghana. That's around the Ashanti, western, northwestern, and parts of the Ahafo and Bono regions. But for us along the coast, especially in the Greater Accra, Central, and Volta regions, the weather generally will be cloudy with slight to moderate rainfall. Today we are not expecting so much sunshine. We will mostly see cloudy conditions and occasionally some breaks of short spells of sunny conditions. Because of that, temperature will not be too high. We're expecting around 30 degrees Celsius as the maximum for the day. Areas around the Kumasi, Abetifi, Obuasi areas will have very low temperatures today because we're expecting very cloudy conditions throughout the day. So temperature will just be around 29 to 30. That's the maximum for the day. So for us along the coast, we should just expect the cloudiness to persist with some breaks of sunshine occasionally, and then some intermittent rainfall, but basically slight to moderate rainfall, nothing heavy for Greater Accra today.
So you're saying some cloudiness and slight to medium rainfall, Joshua, but believe you me, I've seen the rain pelting out there this morning, and it doesn't look very slight to me. It's the kind of rainfall that sometimes wreaks havoc. So how slight is the slight going to be?
So like I was saying, there's that rain cloud which is already in the country, producing some rains over parts of Greater Accra. But this is not going to be persistent throughout the day. So we're expecting that cloudy conditions will be there, but then the intensity of the rainfall will reduce as the day progresses. And so we'll be getting more of the slight to moderate rainfall for the day. Some few areas might get some slightly higher intensity, but it will just be this morning. As the day progresses, that kind of rainfall will just reduce in intensity. And we'll be getting more of the slight to moderate rainfall.
Well, thank you so much, Joshua Asamoah, for bringing us the latest by way of the weather, and we wish you the very best of the day, sir. Joshua Asamoah is a senior forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency. He just joined us with what to expect in the course of today. But let's hit the newsstands, in fact, the newspapers, as we engage Liz Hayfanasari, media consultant, who is our guest this morning. A very good morning to you, Liz. All right, so we'll try to get Liz on as and when she's ready. And good morning, Liz. You may have to unmute.
Yes. Good morning, Benjamin.
Great. Good to have you in your African Prince this morning. Well, here we are. It's a bit of a wet morning. I don't know whether you caught the weather forecast, but slight to medium rains expected in the course of today. And we'd all just have to take precautionary measures because the day started on a rather nippy note. But today I'm going to start on an interesting note. Any takeaways for you from the weekend leading into, let's say, yesterday? Stories that maybe you would not technically find in the newspapers. Ghana knocking on the IMF's doors. And, well, something we'll be discussing today, the labor unions calling for their COLA, cost of living allowance, 20%. Any quick reflections on that before we get into the papers?
Cost of living allowance. We know that the prices of goods and services have gone up and have gone up tremendously. And so people are finding it difficult to make ends meet. We find out that a lot of people are claiming that they're living from hand to mouth. And when it happens like that, then productivity goes down because people look for other means of getting money. So if we're not going to increase their allowances, if we're not going to increase their living allowances, if we're not going to improve their standards of living, then you probably won't be getting the kind of productivity that you would want from those that you're paying, because they need to make a living and they need to make ends meet. Right now, when you look at the wages, if somebody is working in a public institution and has children going to school, then it's a very difficult and very dire situation for them. And then transportation hikes have come in, and people are struggling. I know somebody who walks to the office every morning just so he can keep something for his family. And so it is something that the government really needs to look at, because right now our standard of living is very high.
And speaking of which, there's also news about the IMF, but it's here, so let me just get into the daily graphic so we take a look at it. There's driving transformation agenda, you receive needed support, President assures private sector. There's also teachers declare industrial action, which I was just talking about. Liz, open your defense. Court directs Major Mahama's alleged killers, and there is that big one. IMF team arrives today, led by mission chief. We've seen a statement from government talking about the commencement of engagement with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Let's turn to page 16 to get snippets of that story then. And a high-level delegation from the IMF will arrive in the country today to start discussions with the government on how to support the country out of its current economic challenges. Mission Chief Carlo Dralevic will lead the team of senior officials of the fund from its head office in Washington, D.C., United States of America. The team will also include the country resident representative, Dr. Albert Tuna Mama. On Ghana's side, the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, will lead a task force of economists, ministers, and advisors, while the Ministry of Finance will put together a team of economists, financial, and social technocrats for the discussions. Last Sunday, if you'd recall, the Minister of Information, Kojo Oponkroma, said the president would personally lead a task force at the cabinet level to begin the discussions with the fund. You've seen more than enough times of Ghana going to the IMF. 16 programs in the past, number 17 on its way. That is, if we're able to meet debt sustainability levels, because the mere fact that you go knocking on the IMF's doors does not necessarily mean it will grant you entry. But having to go back to the IMF at this juncture, what does it mean for you as a Ghanaian?
I really, as a Ghanaian, you want me to think for a lot of people. To me, I don't see anything.
No, speak for yourself as a Ghanaian.
For me, I don't see anything wrong with going to the IMF. The problem with going to the IMF is what the regime has made it. We realized that in the past regime, because they went for a bailout, they were called incompetent and inept and all kinds of things. But we always should remember that we are not an island. And therefore, when external shocks come, you will need somebody to support you. You will need somebody to hold you out. But then you can ask the questions, what about those countries that are sailing through despite the COVID-19 and the Ukraine-Russian war? They put their house in order. We probably did not do it as well as they did. So we have to go to the IMF for a bailout. Again, we're talking about just debt sustainability. And I wonder if we will pass that test, because our debts have risen astronomically. But I believe that even when you sit at the table to negotiate, there are certain areas that are very dire that need to be taken care of. And if the IMF listens, we are part of the IMF, we are a contributing country to the IMF, so they definitely will help us. What will happen, I believe, is that they're going to give us stringent conditionalities. And that is what will probably make our situation worse as individuals in the beginning. But that, again, will fade if we keep to our side of the bargain and we work properly. I must say that as a country, our productivity levels are very low. We are not producing anything. We are probably importing everything. And that is not good for us. And that is probably what has gotten us where we are.
The lack of industrialization capacity. We're importing practically everything, including matches and toothpicks. Some of these we produce here, but when you're still importing these basic items, it becomes a bit of a problem. So we've had 17 programs already. This will be the 18th one. And on the back of that, like I was indicating, teacher unions are saying, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when the IMF steps in, there are certain cuts. And one of those areas that often is affected is public sector wages and even employment moving forward. And that is the fear of some of these unions. In fact, the TUC was saying government shouldn't go the way of the IMF, but we find ourselves in dire straits. The finance minister, up until the 11th hour, has said would never go there. Kojo Oponkroma information minister, had been carrying the same story, but now he says we're going to need about $3 billion, hopefully, from the IMF, with all doors being shut in our faces. We can only wish the best for Ghana as we go back into this program, if we do make it, and hope that eventually this will maybe not save our economy, but help us stabilize
and get to the point where we can do better again. I guess that is the hope.
Whilst we are looking at the IMF helping out, we need to put our house in order. I think that we are stifling ourselves with a high inflation, high interest rates, because then people cannot really get their businesses up and running. If you have fuel hikes every other week, transport costs go up for people who are running businesses who have to probably use generators or other kinds of machinery, then we need to be really looking at how we're going to condition ourselves to ensure that our industries are up and running, that we are producing. I mean, when you look at other countries around us, and Rwanda and Tanzania are doing fantastically well when it comes to making sure that they are growing, they are developing. Why aren't we doing the same? Why can't we do the same? Why aren't we working on our attitude as a people to ensure that we are being productive and that we are developing our country and we are making sure that the nation is up to a position where we want it to be. We want to be a developed country, but with the kind of attitudes that we all have, both those in the public sector and those in the private sector, who are always looking inward. If we don't look at making sure that everybody is comfortable and everybody is working, and productivity is what is the backbone of the economy, then we definitely won't go anywhere. And we should stop playing politics with the economy all the time.
I totally agree with you.
If it's one regime, it is a certain way. If it is another regime, it is another way. We should build consensus and make sure that this nation, which is the only one that I belong to, will develop and will be something that I can stand out and be proud of.
Right. Let's wrap with the daily graphic on the back page. It says 3 to investigate sale of Northern Regional public lands. And we've got to hear quite a number of these in recent times. But committee to submit report in 2 weeks. Now, a 3-member committee has been set up to investigate allegations of the sale of public lands to private persons in the northern region. This follows allegations that public land belonging to institutions such as the health, prisons, and education services were being sold to private individuals. Pending the said investigations, the Executive Secretary of the Lands Commission has been directed, pursuant to the previous policy directives, to halt the processing, registering, and transfer of any interest in any public land in the northern region. But is it becoming one too many? We've heard a number of incidents, some that I cannot mention because they've not got to the point where it's in the mainstream media, but at least one popular one has been the issue to do with Sir John, and we keep hearing more and more. Now, this one up north. Quick reactions?
My question has always been, who's the one selling the public lands? If the public lands are being held by the state, and the state is not the one selling, then who is selling? Because then it becomes a very difficult thing to really put a finger on. If it's not the state that is selling, then whoever is selling it is engaging in a criminal activity. But if the state is selling it, who are they selling it to and why? So I believe that the state has to come out and investigate.
Interestingly, per the law, yes, while you may think of the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry and the Works and Housing Ministry, per our constitution, the president holds all of these in trust for Ghanaians. The president holds it in trust for Ghanaians.
So if he has not given the go-ahead to sell, then who is selling?
Right.
And why aren't we bringing the people who are selling our state lands to book?
Let's look at the Ghanaian Times. I can understand your confusion there. Same going on in my mind. But 4 teacher unions down tools nationwide declare strike to press home demand for COLA. Same story we've been looking at in the daily graphic. Amidst economic challenges, President holds breakfast meeting with major players in private sector. Major Mahama murder case, prima facie case made against 14 accused persons. But let's look at this one on page 7. NHI to pay hospitals 30% more for medicines. That story on page 7. of the newspaper. And the NHIA says it will pay hospitals 30% more for medicines in order to ensure an expansive health service coverage across the country. This development comes on the back of an upward review of the National Health Insurance Scheme medicine and service tariffs in accordance with the NHIA's Act 852, that is Act 2012, and signed by the NHIA's Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Bernard Okubboy. This was contained in a statement issued by the NHIA Corporate Affairs Directorate and copied by the Ghanaian Times yesterday. And quoting him, he says, in line with standard practices, all key stakeholders were involved in the process of the review. The average impact of the services tariffs across all provider types in the public sectors is about 35% increment from the previous service tariffs. What does this mean to you, Liz? We've been told that there are going to be some additions, for example, when it comes to sickle cell anemia, hydroxyurea being prominent among those going to be added there, especially for children. Gains being made, most definitely.
I won't say.
Or are you unmoved looking at the, your face, your reaction to the story?
No, I was just going to say I won't say I understand what he said fully. If I did, then probably I'd be able to make comments. When he says 30% increment.
So they're going to be paying the hospitals 30% more for medicine, the value of medicine they give out. That's the NHIA. So the hospital, the system that we go through, and then the claims are made by the hospitals to the NHIA. So there's going to be a 30% adjustment. And I was sneaking in the bit about sickle cell anemia now also coming on board, with hydroxyurea being part of the medication, which formerly wasn't the case.
If that is what is going to happen, then it is a good thing, and it is something that we should support, as long as it does not have anything to do with the premium that we are paying on the NHS. If what we are paying remains the same, and yet a lot more money is going to go into what we are paying for as per the insurance, then it is a good thing, and it is something that must be carried out.
All right, so let's quickly do this. On the back page of the paper, there is promote youth participation in governance. That's according to participants. These were participants at the two-day summit who were calling on West African governments to promote youth participation in political governance at all levels. And according to them, a 40% quota system should be promoted while creating intergenerational platforms for experience sharing in good governance. This was contained in a communique and read by the African Union Youth Ambassador Mohamed Kunta in Accra on Thursday. That is the story I'll wrap with in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. The youth calling for more participation in governance. Right call?
Yes. It's a very good call. We need the youth also to play its role and to play its role fully. But again, you have to look at the competence of the youth that you are engaging with, making sure that we are not doing the same things that we were doing in the past. So you're not just bringing in youth because they are youth, but we are bringing in youth because we know they're competent and they understand the situations that we're dealing with. We need youth who understand governance, and we need to teach them governance properly, so that as future leaders, when they're taking over, they know what they're getting into. But with the current situation where we walk around, the people who are 40 and 45 still consider themselves to be the youth, I'm wondering who we are looking at. And so we should go back to look at the youth as defined by the UN between the ages of 18 and 35. Those are the ones that are considered to be the youth, and we should have them properly engaged, and we should school them. They need to be educated. And so for me, the question then comes to our civic education that is on the back burner. I think that if we need the youth, we need to get them to understand and to know history and to be able to contribute meaningfully to our development and our progress.
Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper now, and all the other stories we've looked at, but we can check out some other stories here as well, other headlines. On the international front, we've not done any international stories yet. I'll just sneak these in. Tens of thousands told to evacuate flooded Sydney suburbs, that's in Australia. And fresh evacuation orders were issued for tens of thousands of Sydney residents on Monday after relentless rains triggered floods for the third time this year in some low-lying suburbs. An intense low-pressure system off Australia's east coast is forecast to bring heavy rain through Monday across New South Wales after several places in the state were hit with about a month's worth over the weekend. So you see the difference. It's pelting outside and only God knows what will happen. But over the weekend, over a few days, 2 to 3 days, they got the rainfall they would expect in an entire month. And that's the difference. That is why these places are flooding. There's also two stories related to the Catholic faithful. Pope Francis denies plans to resign soon, and manhunt for missing priests in Nigeria. And two men, Father Udo Peter and Father Philemon Obo, were abducted by gunmen along a motorway linking the cities of Benin and Auchi. It comes a week after gunmen killed a priest, Father Christopher Odia, near Auchi. And this has been going on for a while in Nigeria. Quick reactions, flooding the Catholic Church and...
The flooding, it's as a result of climate change, isn't it? And we still are not heeding to the warnings of those who are engaging us on climate change and asking that we change our attitudes towards our environment and the growth of our environment. So if we do not do that and we leave things to be the way they are, we still would experience all kinds of floodings and all kinds of patterns, different patterns in the rain patterns that we have had over the years. And I think that it is for us as a people, and I'm not talking here only, I'm talking across the world, because it's not only in Australia that we have seen floodings. We've seen landslides and floodings in the Philippines and other areas of the world. And it's all because we have not heeded to the warnings about climate change. And so we should begin as a people to take it seriously and to work towards ensuring that we are keeping our environment safe, ensure that we are keeping our country safe. And when you talk about flooding in Australia, you realize that they're able to evacuate the people, even as the rains were coming. When it comes to us in Ghana, there's very little we can do. We hardly have even the logistics for which to rescue people. So we should be very careful, and we should be a step ahead. I think that Meteo has been doing very well lately, because when they give us warnings, we realize that it is accurate. And when it's accurate, then you can work with it. So I'd say kudos to Meteo, they're doing well, and we want to see more. But then we need to strengthen the agencies that will come on board if perchance anything happens. When it comes to flooding, NADMO and all fire service and the Navy and all those who would go to rescue people who are stuck in floods should have the necessary logistics to be able to do so we do not lose anybody to the fate of having to drown in floodwater.
Right. Let's wrap with the Daily Guide newspaper. There's an interesting fad, a new trend that has taken, should I say, Accra by storm. It has to do with slay queens scrambling for mansions. And I don't know whether you know any of these, but Jackie Appiah, longtime actress and businesswoman, so to speak, Tracy Boache same. And the new fact is that they are showing off their mansions, so to speak, all of them in East Legon. And Jackie Appiah put up these videos. Some said it wasn't right, it wasn't the best thing to have been done. Some even taunted her on social media. Then Tracy Boache, whom we all know, also came through with hers. She shared the video of a mansion saying, "At least it is mine, oh, one of my mansions, 31 years. Chai." Well, it is what it is, isn't it? And these two ladies doing the flaunting, I don't know whether it's necessary though, but I mean, everyone, different strokes for different folks. So that is the story there. Any quick reactions, Liz? All right, so let's get into some other newspapers quickly. The Finder, what have they found? IMF negotiations begin tomorrow. That story is on page 11. We have the bit about the teachers' unions asking for COLA. And then going to IMF is a tragic mistake, according to the TUC. NHI to pay hospitals 30% more. We've done that. IMF bailout. Can Ghana win with collective effort? So let's look at the IMF question from the two angles. So page 4 of the paper has the first story. And it says the Trades Union Congress has described the government's request for International Monetary Fund bailout as a tragic mistake and a sad one for Ghana. This will be the 18th time our country's economy will be handed over to the IMF to manage. It is very sad because it is a clear indication that we cannot manage our own affairs, the TUC said in a statement. Signed by Dr. Yao Ban, Secretary General, the TUC acknowledged the impact of global developments on Ghana's economy. But let me quickly bring in the one on page 7. IMF bailout. Ghana can win with collective effort. And Ghana has, since the onset of the novel coronavirus in March 2020, been confronted with significant fiscal and debt sustainability challenges. The article goes on to talk about some of what has been done in that respect, and pictured there Dr. John Kuma, MP for Ejiso and Deputy Finance Minister. The question is, going there the 18th time, will this finally make the center hold? Those are some questions, nagging questions on our minds. Let's look at the Daily Statesman newspaper. Strong push for rent reforms, and stakeholders review existing rent laws. There's also Operation Clean Your Frontage Task Force cautioned against extortion. And there's Joseph Kujo. Government will manage economy out of IMF. So we've not even entered yet, but we are being told that government will manage the economy out of it. MCE supports flood victims with relief items, and Ibn Chambers withdraws as ECOWAS envoy to Guinea. We'll be bringing you details of some of these stories. But let's take a quick look at some other headlines right before we proceed. There's also the Meridian and the Hawk newspaper. I'll just wrap with them this morning. BOST ranked 8th on Public Enterprises League table. Incompetence, corruption led Mahama to IMF. That's according to CVM founder. And NDC will boot out NPP in 2024 elections, as Yedun Ketia says so. Finally, the Hawk newspaper. Nana will hand over to NPP government. Bute says so. And then Ghana returns to old banker 3 years after exiting the program. That's all talk about the IMF. Well, that is how we draw the curtains this morning on the news review. Unfortunately, we lost Liz Hayfon-Asari along the way. But thank you all the same if you are watching for joining the conversation. Now, as we veer into sports this morning, we bring you an exclusive with former Black Stars goalie Adam Kwarise. Remember him? He's been sharing some thoughts with George Addo Jr. on the Black Stars goalkeepers, players, and more. That up next. Stay.
Good morning to you and thank you for joining the program this morning. I am Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. Earlier you saw my colleague Muftau Nabila who brought you sports, and Benjamin Akako did the news review. Now to our big story this morning. 4 teacher unions have declared an indefinite nationwide strike effective Monday, July 4 over demands for the payment of the cost of living allowance. The unions comprising the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEWU, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, Ghana, CCT, are demanding that the 20% of their basic salary be paid them. They've blamed their industrial action on government's failure to pay the allowance, which they argue could have helped to mitigate the impact of the rising cost of living. Let's hear from the teacher unions.
These are angry workers in Ghana's educational sector who say they will no longer endure the current harsh economic conditions without any cushioning from government. They want to be paid a cost of living allowance of up to 20% of their basic salary, a request government has failed to meet. To press home their demands, they say they are compelled to abandon their post. Thomas Musa is General Secretary of Ghana National Association of Teachers.
By the high level of inflation in the country, the incessant skyrocketing prices of fuel, goods and services have eroded the already woefully so-called salary increase granted us. We are very much appalled at the inaptitude of the government relative to our call for COLA. We have severally, on different platforms and times, made this call, which fell on deaf ears of government. We have decided to embark on a strike action effective today.
Behind these demands are real people who took up the teaching job to make impact. Many of them, like Vida Sapabil, are regretting.
Everybody is struggling. Now it is better. 2 months ago, I was buying 1 tomatoes for 2 cedi. So if I prepare bankun and I want to grind pepper to eat, I have to go and buy 1 tomatoes for 2 cedi. I regret taking to teaching. I have classmates. After SSS, they didn't continue their education. They went straight to the army. One of them is a WO right now, as I speak. And he's taking 8,000 plus at the end of every month. I have gone to training college. I've gone to the university, done my first degree, done my master's, and I'm still roaming around 2,000. How do I survive? They call for old school meeting. I don't go. The living conditions are 2 different things. When they are come, they are excited, they are talking, and maybe they bring along food and drinks and they are chilling, more relaxed. I can be there, but I won't be relaxed. So I don't even go at all.
Another teacher at the Akrabong Basic School in the Central Region, Amos Amwako, feels neglected by the state, which contracted him to help build future leaders.
I sometimes run my household on loans, and it is not a wise way of living. Because if you are going to take a financial facility or a loan, it should be used for developmental activity. But you go for loans and then you spend it at home. Then you pay interest on it. Then your existence is not even profitable. You don't even feel like you are even existing. If a better job comes, why not? Because a graduate teacher taking home around 2,000. When you do second degree, GES will tell you that they don't recognize it. And the cost of training, courses at the universities are very expensive now. Somebody goes through to do a second degree, and you tell the person that the second degree is not needed. at the pre-tertiary level. So then the cost of entering into that course, you will not get any productivity out of it. So if a better job comes, why not?
Like Vida and Amos, all workers in the educational sector in NAT, TEU, CCT, and NAGRAT have been called to proceed on strike, effective immediately.
By this, we are informing the general public that we are withdrawing all our services in all the pre-tertiary education space. Yes. These include teaching and non-teaching staff.
The only thing that will get them back to work is the payment of their COLA. Manuel Cranting, Joy News, Accra.
So we've received some reactions to this decision by the teacher unions. The National Labour Commission has written to a couple of state institutions and ministers in charge to resolve the matter. The GES has responded as well. One of the institutions cited in that letter written by the National Labour Commission is the Ministry of Education, and we have its PRO, Kwesi Kwarteng, joining us on the line. Good morning, Kwesi. How are you doing this morning? Let me find out from you. Have you received that letter from the National Labour Commission, and what is your outfit doing about this situation as we speak? All right, it appears we lost Kwesi Kwarteng there. So while we wait for him to reconnect, let me bring you that statement by the Ghana Education Service in response to this decision by the teacher unions. So, press release, IRE joint press conference by the leadership of NAT, NAGRAT, CCT and TEU. Management of the Ghana Education Service, GES, has read from the media that the various unions in the pre-tertiary education sector have declared withdrawal of their services with immediate effect. Management has since invited the leadership of the unions to a meeting to discuss the development and the way forward. Heads of senior high schools have been directed through the regional and district directors to mobilize their management teams to ensure the safety and well-being of all students in schools. Meanwhile, parents are advised to remain calm and be assured that management is closely monitoring the situation and will advise on the way forward accordingly. Regional and district directors have further been directed to ensure that basic school heads keep schools opened and closely supervise all children who report to school, pending further directives from management of GES. And this is signed by Cassandra Truman-Pofu, who is head of the Public Relations Unit at the Ghana Education Service. So remember I told you the NLC directed the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Employment, the Ghana Education Service to look into this particular issue and try to find a solution to it. It also advised that the teacher unions to rescind, let me just bring you portions of that letter. It says, with this intervention, we urge the teacher unions to rescind the decision and discontinue the strike action to pave way for the process of engagement to ensure. This morning, we have the Executive Director of the National Labour Commission, Mr. Ofosu Asamoah, joining us for a conversation. Thank you for your time this morning, sir.
Thank you for inviting me to this conversation.
So, Mr. Asamoah, this decision by NAT, NAGRAT, CCT and TEU shouldn't come as a surprise to you, because this is as far back as May, where they demanded a cost of living allowance. In fact, on myjoyonline.com, this story captured on the 28th of June says, be prepared to face consequences if you don't pay us 20% cost of living allowance by the end of June. And this is from NAT. Why Have you waited to this point to intervene in this situation, sir?
Well, it is no surprise to us because we had this development at the labor front. So, and we are aware of all that you have read, except that the demand of the movement or the cost of living allowance was directed to the government and not the National Labour Commission. So they have been engaging with government, of course, who is responsible to give them what they want or what they can, based on whatever negotiation and settlement they arrive at. The National Labour Commission only comes in where the parties are unable to settle, right? And with the declaration of the strike or with the press conference, it is clear that the parties have been unable to settle. They hit the end of the road, and one party has decided to take back on this industrial act. It therefore behoves the National Labour Commission to step in and assist the party to settle the matter for to attain industrial peace. That is why we have come in. So if they are directing us, their request was given was to the government, their warning was to the government, and so on. So you see, that's like commission, like a hospital. You don't blame a doctor that waited till I was sick before you attended to me. If you are well, right? I mean, you don't need the doctor. He doesn't need to step in.
I get your point, Mr. Samoa, but so for example, this story that was done on the 28th of June, they mentioned there that government had not heeded to their calls.
Based upon the first warning came from, what do we call it, Dr. Yaba, secretary to the TUC. And of course, this teacher union are part of the TUC. So we wrote to government that this is the declaration or this is what we have heard. And we are therefore inviting you to begin to engage the parties. The parties and attempt their grievance. So we have been acting already, except that it is not made public. It is we are I'm only talking to you on radio because you have called me or because of the press conference. So it's not that.
Hello, Mr. Samoa. Sorry, we are losing you. Your line is breaking. If it's possible to reposition yourself so we can hear what you're saying clearly, I'd be grateful for that. Hello, Mr. Samoa. Well, while we wait to reconnect, let me just mention that we'd also be having Dr. Clement Park, Deputy Ranking, I beg your pardon, on Parliament's Education Committee, and he's joined us by phone. Clearly, sir, this doesn't come as a surprise to you, does it?
Yes, first of all, let me say good morning to you and to listeners and viewers. You are right. It doesn't come as a surprise to me at all. I think that the teacher unions have been signaling at this for quite some time. I believe that the only disappointment is that government refused to act preemptively to prevent us from getting to where we are today. So you are right. It doesn't come as a surprise to me.
Doc, so, I mean, let's look at government's situation as we speak. On Friday, government admitted that it will need support from the IMF and made that announcement. So clearly, government is struggling economically. Would you have wished then that maybe the teacher unions will consider at least until we're able to get the economy back on track before, embarking on the strike?
Well, I wished you had not introduced the IMF into this conversation. And I say so because this demand is based on an agreement. What that means is that government had known all along that resources ought to be made available to address the legitimate demand being made by the teacher unions on an agreement which predates our current predicament. Now, the question you have raised would be, for example, was it prudent, for example, that government had decided to expend some 200 million Ghana cedis unapproved on the National Cathedral, which was not budgeted for, when it knew that it had commitments to our pre-tertiary teachers. So it's a matter of choice, is the point I'm trying to make. So we cannot simply blame...
I brought in the IMF as an indication of, well, maybe take it, government's admission of our current economic situation, okay? So yes, there was an agreement, but as it stands now, government may not have the resources. And so I'm saying that, and that announcement also predates the announcement by the teacher unions to go on strike. So I'm saying that shouldn't that have, you know, maybe pulled the brakes a bit and allow more time for deliberations and engagements?
Well, I guess that is a case that government itself has to make. But as to whether government would have the persuasive power or the persuasive influence based on its own conduct, as is known by Ghanaians and the teacher unions in particular, we wait to see. And the example I gave would be some of the examples that the teacher unions are going to present. They would also even make the case that when government even announced that it was going to, you know, engage in some austerity measures as a result of the challenges that we were having, why did government choose to reduce fuel coupons by 50% instead of just scrapping fuel coupons? So the point I'm trying to make is that government's own conduct in the time would make it very difficult to assuage the pain of the teachers and to be able to make a compelling case for them to sacrifice. It's unfortunate, but these are just some of the issues that the teachers would raise if and when they sit around the table with government.
This issue has been brewing for months. In the media, we've captured the story from the celebration of May Day, even until recently, where they announced that if government didn't pay the COLA by the end of June, government should be prepared for any decision the teacher unions would have to take. What has your outfit in Parliament been doing? Have you been monitoring the situation? Did you try to intervene? Are you aware if government was in any engagement with the teacher unions?
Well, yes, you are right in indicating that we all saw this coming. And the teacher unions, like many other unions, have never been shy about signaling government. And I think they usually would do that with the hope that government would preemptively act to avert the ultimate, as unpalatable as it is. You and I know that that has not always been the case. The government would wait for whatever reason, and then when the eventual action is taken, which of course is detrimental to teaching and learning, government would then move in and try to engage them. So why is it that with all these signals and red flags that we were seeing, government did not choose to engage the teacher unions? You've made references to Parliament and the Committee on Education. Unfortunately, I must disappoint you that this is not a matter that has been discussed at the committee. It has not come up. And as I've expressed my frustration time and again, I believe that our Committee on Education has to be a lot more up and doing, given the myriad of challenges that are confronting the educational sector in this country. Indeed, I don't remember the last time that the minister even attended to the committee, which in itself is a problem. So sadly, the committee has not discussed it. Perhaps now that we have the situation that we have on our hands where there isn't going to be teaching and learning, until this is resolved, the committee may be compelled to take up this issue.
But Doc,
how far we can go in terms of intervening, I can't tell.
You're deputy ranking member of Parliament's Education Committee. Why has this not come up?
Well, the way Parliament works sometimes is very frustrating to some of us, particularly those of us who came from civil society and came from academia. The processes and procedure, the committee has the capacity to summon the minister to respond to questions and issues. But whether or not the minister shows up, even when needed, is another matter. The committee would usually also look into matters that have been referred to it by the plenary through the speaker. As well, if the committee receives petitions, then the committee can initiate processes to look at the petitions. These are the contexts within which usually the committee would engage stakeholders, even including government, so to speak. And so entirely, the chair of the committee holds sway about what the committee does, when it does it, who is summoned, and when the person is summoned. Unfortunately for us, in our setup, it is usually those who belong to the governing party who chair the most important committees. And so if they choose not to act, sometimes for reasons suggesting that a particular action may be seen as spiting the government which they belong to or embarrassing the government, they may choose not to activate. And the rest of us can only watch on and perhaps even seek action or attention by filing parliamentary questions. And even when you file the questions, an urgent question that should be responded to in 2 weeks sometimes can take a whole 4 or 5 months. And these are some of the frustrations that we face in Parliament.
Doc, I'll have you hold on at this point, and I'll take your reaction to the GES statement that we received in response to the strike by the teachers, because those who are greatly affected by this decision are school-going children. We are heading to the central region now. My colleague Richard Kojunyako is currently in a school to assess what's happening there. In the statement by the GES, management of schools have been directed to keep the schools open and ensure that students are safe and their well-being is catered for. Let's find out if that is happening where Richard Kojunyako is. Hello, Richard. Where are you and what have you observed?
School in the Cape metropolis, precisely at the Abra. The school pupils came to school all right, but the teachers are not here. Some that I spotted here, they said that they came to monitor the situation. In fact, I spoke with the head of the school a short while ago, and she indicated that she only came to school basically to ensure that the children are safe. Those who came to school didn't know about the strike and they came to school, they are safe, to ensure that the last person leaves the school before she could also leave the school. And so that's the situation here. As you can see in the shot, the children are having a field day. The classrooms were not open, even though the schools are in session, but the classrooms were not open to the students because the teachers are not here. The teachers that are supposed to ensure that all of these things will happen is not happening. So the teachers are completely missing out here, but the school pupils are here. Some of them have already left, but others are also on the campus and they are playing. And they will play a little while. Some of them told me that they will play a little while before they get back to their various homes. So
Richard, have you spotted any parent bringing their child to school? And have you been able to find out from them if they've heard of the strike? If they have, why are they still insisting on bringing their children to school?
Well, so some of the parents I came to meet when I came here, they told me that they only got the students to ensure, their was to ensure that, to make sure that the schools, the teachers would come. But now that they have realized that the strike is in full force, then tomorrow they will not bring the children at all. And so they hear the announcement that these the teachers have called out the strike. And so that is what the parents have been telling me. In fact, they are frustrated by the decision and they feel that something urgent should be done about it to ensure that the teachers get back to the classroom.
Richard, you mentioned that the classrooms are locked and so the children are playing outside. The headmistress says she would stay on the site of the school until the last pupil leaves. What are the practical measures being put in place to ensure that these kids are safe? Because clearly, one headmistress alone cannot handle all these kids on this large school compound.
So, but that appears to be the current situation. She's the only one that is currently available. So when I got here, I went to introduce myself to her and she told me that she's only in the school to ensure that the children are safe. And so they would leave the campus gradually before she would also close the offices and get back. So it appears just like doing a normal break time section where the students are here playing and all of that. Some have even begun eating and buying food. The money that were given to them by their parents, they started buying food and then eating as well. And so she said that she will stay on the campus until the last student leaves.
The safety of the students is of major concern. Let me still find out from you. Is the school walled?
Yes, it is a walled school. It is situated within the community. So it'll be safer here. They only get out. There is a gate at the entrance, and so they only get out when they get out of the gate. But some, they came to be told that the schools will not be in session because the teachers are going on strike. And so when they get here, they get back to their house. But there are some who would prefer to stay on campus a little while longer to observe the situation. I have also been speaking with the regional secretariat of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and they say that they are only using today to observe that their members will comply. Should any of their members fail to comply by the directive to go on strike, then they will activate other measures to ensure effective compliance of the strike that they have applied.
Richard, thank you so much. We'll head to the Ashanti region now. Nanaya Ojima is there. And Nanaya Ojima, what's the situation in the school you're in now?
Your call has been...
Hello, Nanaya.
Yeah, Bernice.
What can you report?
Yes, presently I am in New Asafo Basic School, and as Richard said, it's a field day for students here at New Asafo Basic School. The moment I got here, the headmistress was already on the premises. There are some other pupils who have arrived, and more continue to trickle in here for lessons to begin today. But the headmistress and two other teachers presently are on the campus ensuring that the students are safe. Classrooms here are already open, and some of the students are going about ensuring that the place is conducive, or ensuring that the place is sanitary enough for classes to resume. But unfortunately, as I said, there are only 2 teachers on the school campus now, and there is the headmistress as well. And according to the teachers, they were here to ensure that the students are safe. Actually, they are here to help the headmistress ensure that the campus is safe for these students. But most of the teachers are telling me that they're expecting all the students to leave the premises very soon so that they can also lock up and go home. Because as their leadership have said, they are supposed to be on strike, but it's because of the welfare of these students. That is why these 2 teachers are here to help the headmistress. Most of the classrooms are open, but there are few others which remain closed. The staff common rooms or in this school are closed. This is the kindergarten room, empty classroom, because there's no teacher to ensure that these students come inside for classes to commence. So it's a field day for the students here. Most of them tell me they are waiting for a while before they leave the school to their various homes. So as it's been reported all over, teachers here are complying with the strike. Before coming to the New Asafo, I was in Spirit Experimental School. I also went to Kasi Basic School, and also did pass by Amedia Senior High School. And it looks like the situation in these schools are not different. And there are lots of students in the school, but teachers are nowhere to be found. And some of the schools have a skeleton staff to ensure that these students are safe.
Nanaya, it's 8:06 now, and in many schools, lessons would have started by now. With the number of students I see at the school you're in now, do I get the impression then that a lot of parents didn't bring their children to school at all due to the strike action?
Exactly. Most of the parents are aware that teachers are on strike, so they wouldn't even bring their children to the school. Rather, they'll find a conducive environment within their homes for these pupils or for their wards to stay. But a few of them who didn't know, and others who thought that the situation would be different today, have their ward in the school. Some of the teachers have started calling the parents to come and pick their awards so that the teachers could also go home, because the work that a lot they are doing today is just a voluntary work, as some will put it. So I can see other teachers here at the new ASAP arriving, but it doesn't look like they are arriving or they are here to teach, but rather they are here to help the headmistress, as I said earlier.
And Nanaya, before I let you go, is the school walled?
Yes, it's a walled school. Actually, this school shares the same premises with the municipal assembly. So it's a walled environment. It's a very secured environment. But since teachers are not here to ensure that these students stay on campus or stay on the premises, and some of them on the blind side of their teachers are able to sneak outside and go to wherever they want to go. Some can give the excuse that they are going home, and they just get out of the school premises to wherever they want to go. So even though there's a skeleton staff to ensure that these students are safe, it's unclear whether they can do the job effectively.
Thank you, Nanaya. We'll leave it here. That's my colleague Nanaya Ojima painting a picture for us and what's happening in some schools in Kumasi. Let's speak to the PRO of the Ministry of Education, Kwesi Kwarteng. Good morning. Thank you for joining the program this morning. First off, let me find out from you if there have been prior engagements with the teacher unions before the announcement of the strike. Too bad we lost him again. Let's head to the northern region now. Martina Bugri is there for us. Hello, Martina. Yeah. Good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Kwarteng.
No, this is...
Okay, sorry about the mix-up there. Martina, if you can hear me, let us know what's happening in the northern region.
I am at the Matoria Primary School, and the children are all playing here. I spotted just 2 teachers, and they are here not to teach, but to announce to the children to go home. Today they are on strike. I've been speaking to some of the children, and what they tell me is that some said they heard the announcement they heard on the news that their teachers were going on strike today. Some also said they didn't know, they just came and got the information. They are playing around here. Nobody is studying. All they are doing is playing. Some are climbing, and the whole school is locked as we speak now. So as we speak now, most schools that I've been to in the Tamale metropolis, their children are either playing or they have come and they are heading back home because they are aware now that their teachers are on strike.
Have you spotted any head of the schools or teachers around to ensure that these kids are safe and well catered for?
Yes, for this school, for instance, we have 2 teachers who are here. One was behind the classroom. I didn't know what he was doing there, but he was called to me. The other one I saw in the classroom. But most of them haven't been to school today as we speak. Just 2 of them here as we speak now.
And so what's happening with the kids now? Besides they playing, what are their teachers telling them? Are they asking them to go home, or they're waiting for their parents to come and pick them up?
Yes, the teachers have asked them to go home. And so the grown-ups amongst them who came with their little ones are the ones guiding them now and heading home. I have seen some already leaving. Others are also still hanging around as we speak.
Thank you. That's our Northern Region correspondent, Martina Bugri, painting the picture for us in the Tamale metropolis. If you just joined the program, we are discussing the strike announced by 4 teacher unions over non-payment of cost of living allowance. So let me come back to you, Dr. Apak, and thanks so much for holding on. The GES says heads of schools should keep the schools open and ensure that the children are well catered for, and also ensure that they are safe. We've been to a couple of schools around the country. Do you agree with this decision by the GES to keep the schools open despite the strike by their teachers?
As indicated so far, it doesn't sound to me as though the heads of the schools are able to execute the directive given by the Ghana Education Service. And quite honestly, I don't blame them. I mean, you cannot expect one head teacher to be able to keep say, 400 or 300 students in school when, the teaching staff is not available. It's practically impossible. So I would have thought that the directive would be to close the schools down in the interim while the teacher unions are engaged. Because as it is, there are dangers that portend in the current arrangement. I mean, we are speaking about largely children who are below teenage years. Even those who are teenagers in the secondary schools, we ought to be worried about them as well. So I would suggest that if it is indeed the case that government is unable to immediately resolve this impasse, and given the posturing of the teacher unions, this is going to drag on, it may just be best to close the schools down so that parents can be certain about the safety of the awards. Because what is the point of sending a award to school when there's not going to be any teaching and learning, when that ward potentially would be exposed to a lot of danger? So we must also factor in the security and safety of the children from KG to the secondary school. Even the secondary schools, there will be issues around safety. We have seen that even happen when, at the higher level tertiary, when UTAG went on strike. We had some of the occurrences that were going on our university campuses. So I don't think it is safe at all to keep the students in school if there is no guarantee that this matter is going to be resolved in the short term.
Doc, the National Labour Commission has written to the Minister of Employment, Education, the Director General of the GES, the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, and the Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and is tagged very urgent. And they are being asked to engage the aggrieved teachers and immediately resolve their issues within 7 days, and furnish the commission with a report upon completion of negotiation. Okay, and based on that 7-day ultimatum given these institutions, the National Labour Commission is urging the teachers to go back to the classrooms. Considering what we've seen around the nation and your own assessment of the impact of this on the safety of students, what would your call to the teacher unions be?
Well, I think that the call is in the right direction. We can only intercede and plead. Clearly, the teachers have a case. Clearly, government has failed to be preemptive and proactive. But at the end of the day, we must also factor in the safety and security of the students. And it's within that context that, I would also like to add my voice to the call. But ultimately, the blame must be borne by government. We shouldn't have gotten to where we are. We are there. What can be done? All we can do is to plead that the teachers should have mercy on the pupils and the students, while we trust and believe that government will do the needful. I would even say that the 7 days is a bit too long. Government should be proactive in trying to resolve this matter. We know that these are challenging times for the Ghanaian economy. All sorts of reasons are being proffered. Some of them I don't think are tenable. But at the same time, if you listen to government spokespersons, they have indicated that we are not on our knees, which will suggest that statutory obligations can still be met. And I would argue that when it comes to statutory obligations in the area of healthcare and education, those must be priorities. So whatever meager resources remain, I would want to urge government to make those available to resolve this matter as soon as possible, so that teaching and learning cannot be disrupted as we are currently anticipating, because it is going to be detrimental in the medium to long term if this strike action prolongs and if the teachers refuse and stick to their legitimate demands as the law grants them to use to get what they believe they are owed by the state.
Dr. Clement Apak, I'll come back to take your concluding thoughts on this developing issue. But let me hear from the PRO of the Ministry of Education, Mr. Kwesi Kwarteng. Hopefully, we are able to hear him this time. Thank you so much for reconnecting with us, Mr. Kwarteng. So, prior to this decision by the teacher unions, has there been any engagement with them?
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, so with regards to the briefing that I've had, of course, just supposing with the communique from the teacher union. I mean, they indicated clearly that they've engaged government at various levels. Of course, I mean, with much emphasis to the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, because, I mean, this strike issue is purely a labor issue. And ordinarily, you would expect that all their engagements would have been with the Ministry of Labor and Employment Relations. Of course, we do admit that in the long run, they are workers of the Ghana Education Service and it's larger extent in the Ministry of Education. So yes, there has been some engagement with regards to the cost of living allowance. I mean, this is no secret. I mean, there has been several times where they've made it public. But of course, a lot of these engagements were not conclusive. And consequently, we find ourselves in this situation where our dear teachers have to embark on strike. It's quite unfortunate, especially within the context of where we find ourselves as a country economically. But having said that, we also believe that at this crucial stage, there has to be that demonstration of leadership. Leadership ought to be provoked, leadership must act. And there's a more reason why the Minister for Education, Dr. Yoseduchu, has directed that GES, that is the agency responsible for implementing everything within the pre-tertiary space, and who happens to be the direct employers of these employees, which is the teacher unions, actually have to engage them. So far as I'm concerned, today we are meeting all these teacher unions to be able to make sure that we find at least a roadmap that will lead to resolving these issues as soon as possible. But of course, beyond that too, there has been some temporary decisions, temporary measures that has been taken to make sure that the impact is really not dire, especially on our students. So if you go to the various secondary schools, for instance, they have been directed, management has been directed to still take care of the safety and well-being of these students at the basic school levels too, especially within the JHS to primary school levels too. Schools will still remain open. There will be the management of the school, i.e. the heads that will be there to also assist students who comes around until they leave or their parents count for them. So those are the temporary measures, and of course we hope that today, when the Ghana Education Service meets the leadership of the teacher unions, we should be making progress ultimately.
But Mr. Kwarteng, is it a realistic approach to say that heads of schools should cater for students? So say even if half of the pupils come to school, are we expecting that the head teacher will single-handedly be able to cater for the safety and ensure the well-being of all these pupils?
I mean, ordinarily, as a valid question, but except to say that it's the same head of school who takes care of them when they are around. Again, you also have to know that within this time, we are also not expecting all the students in school. So, I mean, by simple proportionality, it makes sense that somebody still has to be in charge and still administer, guidance and care to the number of students, no matter how significant or insignificant that they may be, that may want to be in the schools at various points in time. And so what is more important is that we really have to take steps that seeks to find a lasting solution to this strike action or to this strike hamper. And one of them has to be that those students that are in school, especially when they go to the secondary level, school level, is their secondary school. You have the headmaster, you have the assistant headmasters,
you have the dining hall masters, you have the how do you call it, the house mistress and the house masters. All of them constitute the management, who we believe that they should be capable, especially within this short space.
But most of them are also teachers who belong to these unions, aren't they?
Yes. But the balance also has to be stated clearly. That
so are you saying that? I'm sorry. I mean, I just want to understand how you perceive it. So are you saying that because they have management roles, even though they are teachers, they need to perform those roles despite the strike?
Yeah, I mean, look at the context of the strike. The context of the strike is not to teach and not necessarily to carry on with every other activity. So is the withdrawal of their service. Of course, I mean, one can argue whether it's a full service or the partial service. But basically, is the withdrawal of that teaching component that makes that the strike gives that significance and magnitude that they have. But at the end of the day, management are still in the school, head teachers are there. We have even we look at, for instance, at the secondary school level, the regional directors of the Ghana Education Service, all of them are also there helping with the mobilization of the management teams, using the district directors to be able to, how do you call it, resolve the issue within the school and at least find some space for these children, take care of them, make sure they are safe. As a temporary measure, as today we prepare to meet the leadership of the teacher unions.
When you say we, are you referring to all those copied in that letter by the National Labour Commission?
As of now, it is the Ghana Education Service. I mean, that is those are the agencies responsible for the pre-tertiary space. And largely, I mean, a lot of these teacher unions, NAS, NAGRAS, CCT, TEWU, all of them falls under the Ghana Education Service. So it is the leadership of the Ghana Education Service that will be engaged in them. But of course, I mean, the Ghana Education Service is an agency of the Ministry of Education, so everything that they do falls within the domain or the scope of the Ministry of Education. So largely, it's the Ministry of Education that will be engaging these teacher unions to find that roadmap in resolving the issue.
You mentioned earlier that this is largely a labor issue, and you're right. And so in that letter by the NLC, we see that the employment minister is copied in there. With these negotiations, help us understand how it works. And that's the reason I was asking, when you say we, do you mean all those copied in that letter? So the teacher unions will have a separate meeting with you before they go on to meet the Minister of Employment, before they go on to meet the Ministry of Education, or you can sit at a round table and have, you know, a full discussion as a sit-in. Wouldn't that be easier? Just help us understand how it works.
Yeah, obviously. At the end of the day, everything falls within the domain of government. It doesn't really matter which agency or which ministry is spearheading it. But of course, like I indicated, within a temporary measure, or as a temporary measure, the Ghana Education Service will be meeting their staff based on the directive that came from the NLC. But if you look at previous negotiations that have had the opportunity to sit in, being it that of POTA, being it that of UTAC, when it comes to negotiations properly so-called, where the basic terms of all the parties are pushing for are discussed, that is done at the larger government level. And with that, you have the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the parties that are involved, all of them being there. Of course, I mean, GES as an agency is unable to negotiate on behalf of government properly so-called. It has to be the ministry that has to take that role. But of course, to find a roadmap and as an immediate response to the strike issue, their workers must have to engage them. Obviously, at the end of the day, have a briefing with the ministry or the minister, then all consequential decisions is made afterwards.
I let you go. And my first question to you was whether there had been prior engagements before this strike. And you did indicate that to the best of your knowledge, there was. So why are we here?
Yeah, so I mean, labor issues all over the world is inevitable. Those are demands and the probably within the context of even
one's ability to supply, whether it's government or whoever the employer is. At the end of the day, it's about having a conclusive discussion. So the fact that somebody has made a demand does not necessarily mean that within, by hook or crook, such a demand has to be met. At the end of the day, one may have to go into the details of the demand, have to look at the legitimacy of it. Of course, I mean, I'm just giving a general hypothesis. Then at the end, two parties engage. Those are what exists in an ordinary employer-employee relationship. When that engagement is done, you all conclude on one particular, agreement, and then you administer it or implement it. And so I can only say that a lot of the discussions were inconclusive. And I mean, we've seen this before, it's repeated a lot of times, and labor issues all over the world. I mean, let's be very honest and very fair to ourselves. If we want to speak about our salary regime as a country, everybody genuinely deserves some increase within the salary structure. And of course, I mean, in reality, let's also just suppose that with the amount of money that really goes into the payment of salary, almost 70% of every revenue is paid to Ghanaian workers. So we just have to look at the balance. But ultimately, the decision must be reached. Ultimately, leadership has to be demonstrated. Ultimately, there has to be consensus building. And for me, I think that is what the process, is that process that the Minister for Education has initiated. So the fact that, previous engagements were not conclusive does not mean that probably there shouldn't be anything that ought to be done. At the end, if two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. And it is the more reason why we have provoked that button of leadership, leading the discussions, making sure that we who tends to suffer the greater impact as Ministry of Education, make sure that we are able to sit down with our people, with our dear teachers, and make sure that we find a long-lasting solution to this answer.
Thank you for your time here this morning. Kwesi Kwarteng is PRO of the Ministry of Education. So let me wrap up with you, Dr. Park. You are ranking member of Parliament Education Committee. So we've heard from Mr. Kwarteng, there will be some meetings today. But I'm just looking at the reaction to this particular story. If you go to our Facebook page, there's a story that we did on the 11th Standard series of teachers. Even in the story we played before we had this conversation, there's a woman who says she has a master's degree, but she earns less than 3,000 cedis. There are some teachers who earn 1,500 cedis. Clearly, this is beyond this government. I mean, not to play the politics that always happens, but as a people, would you say we generally have not been fair to our teachers when it comes to their salaries?
Well, I agree with you that as a nation, as a people, we haven't done well. Some of us have had the privilege and opportunities to study and even teach in other parts of the world. And I continue to be amazed that in our system, the professionals that ought to be remunerated more, incentivized more, are those that seem to be at the bottom of the totem pole in Ghana. I mean, I was in Canada, I was in Norway, I was in the US, and I've been very involved in the educational systems. I've participated actively, both as a lecturer and as a student leader in my days there. And it will amaze you to know that in those countries that we look up to for best examples, it is the teachers and the nurses who get the most salary and emoluments, not the politicians and the CEOs. It is, in fact, those teachers who teach at the lowest levels and in the most deprived areas of those advanced countries who get the best of conditions. We are doing the opposite. So, yes, I would want to see the day where we will do the needful by placing teachers and nurses where they ought to belong. Because the survival, health, enlightenment of our society and our competitiveness in the global arena largely will rely on our ability to be trained to think critically, and our being in good health. So I agree with you that we have not done well generally as far as the conditions of teachers are concerned.
So beyond solving their cost of living allowance, how do we remedy the problem?
Well, we would have to have a rethink. We would have to have a reorientation about the most critical professionals needed for the basic survival and progress of our society. So it is going to have to be a national conversation. And it is my hope that, as we will be gravitating towards the 2024 election, we should begin to see this conversation, and hopefully it will play a role in influencing various political manifestos. We can then, give it some ventilation, even when those who make the best case, and I hope it will be my party, are given the opportunity to govern this country in 2024, after 2024, so to speak.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Clement Apak is Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Education Committee. And this morning, we've been talking about the strike by 4 teacher unions over the cost of living allowance that has not been paid. Let's bring you what's happening in some schools in the Bono East region. Anas Abet is there for us. Hello, Anas. What have you observed in the schools you visited?
Bernice, this morning I've been to some 3 schools, including one community senior school, the Japo Community Senior School. I've also been to the Japo Basic School, and currently I'm in the Al-Khayriya Islamic Basic School, where I met the people at the assembly grounds with the headmistress of the school. Moments ago, the headmistress has instructed or asked the people to go back home for their own safety, considering the number of people she has here. She says the numbers are huge, and as a single person, she can't handle them all as instructed by community last night. She instructed the people to go home for their own safety, and the school is currently without people. They have only a few of them around playing, but majority of the people have returned to their various homes. The headmistress is here with me, Madam Asiana Kusina. I would want to have a quick interaction with her on why she this particular decision to allow the children to return to their various homes. So that is a quick one. I have the headmistress of the Al-Khayriya Basic Islamic Basic School. So share with us what was the situation there? I've realized a number of people are currently not in class. So what happened?
Yes, that is very true. Yesterday we heard the news and all the other media platforms. So this morning I decided to come and see what the situation would be like. When I came, I realized almost all the teachers didn't come. And some of the children too. Though some came, but the number was not very encouraging. I waited for a while and I realized that still it's like the teachers are not coming to the strike action. And so I called for symbols and then told the children that they should go home to their parents, at least for their safety. And I, being alone here, cannot take care of all of them for the number that has come. So that is the steps so far I've taken. Still, some are hanging around. Maybe they feel reluctant to go to the various schools, but I will also be leaving soon. So I'm still talking to them to go to their parents. That is what is happening now.
Madam, does that mean they are staying home tomorrow too, or you will be coming and do you expect the people to come around tomorrow? What's the...
In fact, I told them because we don't know when we are coming back. We've not been told yet. We are still listening to the news, but this time all the information passes through the news. So we are still listening. See, I told them they should also be listening. Whenever they hear that we are coming back, they should.
Right, thank you so much. So, Bernice, you heard Madam Asiana Kusina, Mistress of the Islamic Basic School here in Kutuman, on some measures she's taking to show that the children are safe, like you heard. So, That is the situation here in Kochima. We will be monitoring other areas as well to have first-hand information on how the situation is impacting on academic activities across the municipality.
Well, Anas a bit there joining us from the Bono East region and painting a picture of what's happening there for us. Well, let's know what you think about this development. And I've been seeing some of your comments on our Facebook live stream. There are a couple of you who are worried about the situation and feel that teachers should be treated better. We'll come back to take those comments. But here's a story, our Living Standard series story, which paints a picture of what teachers go through in the country.
One thing that is easing the stress is my wife.
We just don't know how we do it, but we survive.
If I'm to put all the loans together, I have about 39,000 cedis.
When you come in contact with the kids, they make you forget whatever you're going through.
A popular African saying goes, a teacher's reward is in heaven. This saying holds a lot of truth because although teaching is an essential profession, many teachers receive inadequate pay. For the past 12 years, Moses Ayi has been instructing junior high school students in a public school in Pobikope. He is extremely passionate about his work, and despite his meager pay, he has no plans to pursue any other line of work.
I've been teaching for 12 years. It's my passion. It was okay when I started. Especially when I was single, the money that was coming was enough to take care of me and even my mom.
Moses gets paid 2,500 cedis per month. However, 1,000 cedis is taken out of his paycheck to pay off debt. His wife, mother, and 4 children all depend on his monthly balance of 1,500 cedis.
If I'm to put all the loans together, let's say I have about 39,000 cedis. 39,000 cedis to pay. So the one at controller is deducting around 715 or so, and the one with my bag is deducting 300 Ghana cedis, making, let's see, 1,000, around 1,000.
But he is struggling because of the state of the economy. Each day, Moses spends 50 cedis for food and transportation. His pay is gone even before he considers his other responsibilities.
I used to spend 5 cedis on food.
What do you buy?
But now 5 cedis cannot buy the amount that I used to buy due to increase of prices and those stuffs. Normally, I buy, let's say, kinky and fish. So let's say, kinky 2 cedis, fish 3 cedis, making 5 cedis. Then this one is aside water, because water 20 pesos, but now the 5 cedis cannot buy the kinky that I used to buy. So you need at least, let's say, 7 cedis. But for my side, I have to regulate the way I spend, especially on feeding.
Moses says his wife, who is a nurse, supports him fully. He says she's aware of his financial situation and is entirely behind him. For him, without his wife's help, he would have died trying to survive.
The only thing I take consolation from is to have a woman that understands me. Because if I was married to a woman that doesn't understand the situation at hand. Let's say by now, the stress that I'm going through would have even killed me by now. Because it's not easy as I'm talking to you. It's not easy at all.
His colleague, Ernestina, teaches RME and English at a public school at Amasaman. Ernestina teaches more than 300 students every term. She is married with a son and lives in a rented apartment. She says, apart from her family, interacting with her students is always the highlight of her day.
It's not been smooth and it's not been rough. When you come in contact with the kids, they make you forget whatever you're going through. Yes, they will make some funny things that will make you laugh out, that will make you feel good.
But Ernestina's smile fades while trying to explain her predicament as a teacher. She earns 1,800 cedis a month, but is paying off loans. So at the end of every month, her disposable income is 600 cedis.
It's funny how we do it, but you manage.
But these loans you take, what is it for?
There's nothing you can do without a loan. Personally, I did to pay for my rent and then my kids' school fees. I pay like 820, 900 a month as loan.
Every month as well. And that is taken out of your salary every month?
Yes, well.
This money is used to pay for meals, childcare, transportation, home maintenance, and caring for her mother.
We just don't know how we do it, but we survive. Because after whatever is taken out, TNT hasn't been taken out. And then gone were the days when TNT was 2 cedis on the same salary. Now TNT is 4 cedis on the same salary. Yeah. Food staff have been increased on the same salary. Diapers have been increased on the same salary. Baby food, yes. And fortunately for me, I'm a local girl, so I do local food for my son.
She however beams with smiles when she shifted the conversation to her students.
We get our inspiration from the kids. That's all I'll keep saying. You come, they greet you every morning. Some salute you every morning. So, hey, madam, today you're looking nice. Hey, madam, you see? I mean, they make you forget whatever you go through. And it's the love of the work.
The stories of Moses and Ernestina reflect why teacher unions have been agitating for cost of living allowance, COLA. Teacher unions, particularly NAGRAT and NAT, say although 20% of their salary as COLA is small, it will provide some relief.
COLA, when it's given, it will ease the stress on me, because even if 20% is given, at least I know if I'm not getting at all, I'll get around, let's say, 200 to 400 Ghana cedis. At least it will be able to cater for my transportation.
You will see that the 20% we are even asking for is nothing much. We just need a support system till the budget is ready. That is all we are asking for. I went home last weekend, told my mom I had no money. She was asking for money. I told her I have no money. You know what she said? And I'll quote him, hey, she just doesn't understand why I should say I don't have money at that time of the month.
Clearly, teachers are going through a lot in this country, and just that lady, my colleague, spoke to, talking about how much she earns 1,800 at the end of the month. You think about accommodation, food, transportation, and that's why this story on the front page should excite you. We are pushing for rent reforms. Strong push for rent reforms. You ask yourself, why should someone earning 1,800 teacher? We don't even have teachers' bungalows in this country. I mean, many teachers are posted to different parts of the country. They don't even have a place to sleep. So why should we be charging 1.5 years, 2 years rent advance? Where's the person going to get the money from? So let's make the system very easy for ourselves. Anyway, let me pick your comments on this strike action. Let's get on to Facebook, where a lot of you have been sharing your thoughts with us. So the National Labour Commission has urged striking teacher unions to rescind their decision to reduce their service and return to post. And if you've been following the conversation, this is because it has written to the Employment Minister, the Minister of Education, Director General of the GES, and a couple others to engage the teacher unions and within 7 days report back to the Labour Commission on the negotiations that they've been able to arrive at. So let me take your comments on that. Joseph says, meet up with their demands and they'll go back to their classroom. Okay, and Edward says, I don't think they said that. I believe they respect their families. They should. Okay. Someone clearly unhappy there. Joshua Kwame Badagba says, where were they when workers started declaring this action? Okay, so thankfully, early on the show, we spoke to the Executive Director of the National Labour Commission, who did mention that, well, Executive Secretary, I beg your pardon, Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, who said that they were aware of the threats of strike, but their mandate does not allow them to interfere so much. They can only intervene. So Daniel Tete says, another useless commission. Are they not checking our minimum wage? Enoch says, what is this issue with the NLC? Who knows how to slumber until strikes erupt when they begin to issue threats and ultimatum? I wish all these people had joined the conversation earlier, because it's the same question I put to the Executive Secretary of the NLC, and he gave a response to that. Nana Bing says, so upon all the countless press releases, where was the NLC? Magana, what's happening? This is hashtag fix the country. Nana get E-levy and IMF and no money for teacher's salary. How? But money to fly a private jet. He says he thinks the president should resign. Prince Kasungo says, who cares about the NLC? They proceed to court. We learned our lesson from UTAC. Frank Albert says, the Labour, okay, I mean, this is just an unfounded allegation. Isaac says, is the NLC standing in for the Labour or the government? Because you are not the National Government Commission. Why do you always feel happy when labourers are hungry? Oh, Ghana, is it a crime to serve your nation? And Gila Bismarck says, where was this commission when workers asked government to give them cola? He says they were aware and they actually made some moves, but this time they've had to push harder since the negotiations didn't have a fruitful conclusion. In fact, we heard from the PR of the Ministry of Education that there were indeed meetings prior to this decision by the teachers to strike. James says the NLC is a big joke. Agbenyega, okay, let's skip that one. Theophilus Donko says the NLC will go to the president. Okay, another unfounded allegation. We can't take that. Chris Caffrey says, no, let them sit at home and take salary. We have to surrender all our institutions to private investors to handle. That's where seriousness can be seen. Delali J.O. says the NLC is not in the interest of Labour, always bidding for the government. And Celestine is asking, the NLC crowd, who do they represent? So we'll be following this keenly as we've done during the show, bringing you an update on what's happening in different parts of the country. We still have our eyes on the ground, especially when it comes to the welfare and safety of these children, some of who are in school despite the strike. And we'll also be following up on the negotiations between the teacher unions and all the relevant institutions and let you know what happens with this particular one. But for now, we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, unfortunately, once again, we are recording some floods in parts of the cities. After about an hour of rains, we'll be back to bring you the details. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. I'm Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. For those of you who live in Accra, or if you're even traveling to Accra, we just want to make you aware that there've been some rains this morning, resulting in floods in major parts of the city. So the Shangri-La area is flooded. The Kwame Nkrumah Circle area is flooded. Lekma is also flooded. So we are showing you some videos of some of the places which have been affected by today's rains. So when you're stepping out, please stay safe. If you don't need to step out, please don't. If you know you live in a flood-prone area and need to get to a safe zone, please do that as soon as possible. Just make sure you are not caught up in the floods and you do not become a victim. Also, for those of you who are driving, don't be too sure of the quality of your vehicle. Do not go through flood waters. We've been warned so many times that the potential of being drawn into moving water is high and you could lose your life as a result. So this is what is happening in some parts of the city as a result of about an hour of rains this morning. So please stay safe. Please stay safe. We'll come back to take your thoughts and your comments, and also for you to tell us what's happening where you're living. But now it's time to have a conversation on E-levy. Yes, the one that a lot of you don't like to hear. Isaac Amwako is a member of the E-levy Technical Committee at the GRA, and he joins us for a conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I'm back.
It's good to have you. So on Friday, which was the 1st of July, we migrated onto the common platform because we were told that this was going to be done in phases, and we've had this conversation over time. I realized on social media that there was a bit of, I don't want to call it fake news, but there was a bit of misunderstanding on a statement released by the GRA, and there were some people who were saying that we were now going to be charged for putting money on our own wallets. The GRA has come out to clarify that, but for those who are not aware of what the common platform is going to do exactly and why we have done this in phases, do you mind just rehashing and going over the point again?
Thank you very much. So the common platform is a digital platform that has been built by the Ghana Revenue Authority for charging entities to connect digitally onto that platform. Now, that platform, in the first phase, we told the public that the charging entities were charging the E-levy on their own internal platform, and for that matter, they didn't have visibility across. So if somebody is due an exemption, because they were operating in silos, there was no possibility of knowing whether somebody is due the exemption. So they were charged, then after they request for a refund. But once the common platform is operating fully, we don't expect these kind of charges to take place. But it also operates on the basis that every customer or every person on the platform has updated either their Ghana card information if they are individuals, and then taxpayer identification number if they are corporate entities. So if you do not have an identity, you can't enjoy the exemption that the state is granting you, because the state wouldn't want to give an exemption to an unknown person. The person needs to be identified. So once the common platform is operating functionally and fully, when you send the first 100 Ghana cedis that is granted, you realize in the phase one, the exemption was being enjoyed per wallet, per account. So if you have 2 wallets, you basically enjoy 200 Ghana cedis a day. With the common platform, you enjoy only the 100 Ghana. You won't enjoy 200. If you have multiple accounts, you would only have 1 for your entire person for the day. So
I'm sure this doesn't excite a lot of people.
It doesn't, yeah, because people are going to more or less lose out.
Okay.
The second one, which will excite them, is that now when you send to a number or an account that you own and you have updated both numbers, then you don't get
with the Ghana card.
With the Ghana card for individuals, and then
with the
taxpayer identification number for corporate. If you have not done that, you will be charged. So if you have done that successfully, then you don't get to be charged when you transfer amongst yourself. Then there's a third one. those who operate as merchants. By merchants, that means they receive payment for goods and services through one of these payment service providers, MTN, Momo, debit, credit card, anybody who receives payment for goods and services through that platform. Now there's a third leg we are implementing, which was not implemented during the first phase. Now, if the merchant is not registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority for income tax or VAT, then your customers are going to suffer E-levy.
No, say that again.
So we have an exemption in the law known as specified merchant payments. But this specified merchant payment is a way the government is using to more or less expand the tax net. But it works this way. If the merchant is registered with the state for income tax or VAT, then his customers who purchase from him don't get to pay E-levy. If not, the customers pay the E-levy. To make the merchant business, one, expensive, and also to inconvenience his customers so that the customers would look for somebody who is prepared to join the state called Ghana and contribute to taxation. That is the objective.
So how do prospective customers identify a merchant who has registered and is paying income tax?
Simple. In the course of doing the transaction, you get to the point where you'll be asked to provide your PIN. Now, for those who use Momo Pay and those USSD, that's basically how it works. There's a point where they will ask you for your PIN. In asking for your PIN, they will display to you the cost of the item you are purchasing. If there are charges from the telcos, it will be displayed to you as well. At that point, if it is the person is not registered for the income tax or VAT, the tax amount would be a figure other than zero.
Okay.
That is the point that you get to know his.
Let's make it more practical. So we're told that mobile money merchants are not supposed to, I'm not supposed to give the money to deposit into
Let's differentiate between the vendors, the agent, which sometimes we also call them merchant from this particular merchant I'm referring to.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So let's make it easy for us to understand, because I'm a bit confused. So when you say merchant, in this instance, who do you refer to?
When we say merchant, we don't mean mobile money vendors, we don't mean mobile money agents, no.
Okay.
We mean somebody who is selling.
Okay, so that makes sense. So if I walk into a shop and I purchase an item and I say, I'd like to pay via Momo, and they have this POS device that allows them to activate the process, and I receive a notification on my phone, if that person hasn't registered with the GRA, then besides the E-levy amount that I'm not even supposed to pay for E-levy on that, am I?
If the person is registered.
So once I see a message indicating that I have to pay E-levy, it means the person is not registered.
Yes, that's the information we are giving out.
Okay, so that makes sense. So that is how I can. So I have the choice to either go through with the transaction or abort it.
At that point, yes.
Interesting. So since you went onto the common platform on the 1st of July, what has the level of compliance been? I know the GRA cautioned the charging entities that, I mean, there was going to be some repercussions if they didn't come onto the platform. Yes. Have all of them come onto the platform as we see?
Not all of them. Some are still joining.
What is causing the delay?
Or some have written to us that their internal system is still under, So we should give them some reprieve so that, I mean, some say by end of this week they will join. Others are asking for extension. So we've received formal requests from some of these charging entities.
I'm glad you're here this morning. So if you're somebody who has multiple mobile money accounts and you have connected all of them or updated all of them with your Ghana card, and you're still having issues being charged once you do a transfer from one personal account to the other, you should understand why that is happening, because we are told that not all the charging entities have merged onto the common platform. So that clearly is a challenge. But for those that have merged, what has been the level of compliance?
Even for those that have merged, there is some hitches from some of the charging entities. So, you know, this platform is dependent on the charging entities also configuring their internal system. So if a charging entity fails to fully update all the processes we've discussed, then his customers might suffer some inconvenience so far as they are not fully done with the configuration at their end. For us, GRA, we are good to go. Those charging entities who are done 100% are not having any issue.
So, I mean, is it cast in stone that by the end of this week we should, because then it means that a lot of people are still going to have to suffer being charged for, you know, doing transactions between, I mean, from one personal account to the other, and the stress of calling your charging entity and making a complaint.
I am a mathematician, so I don't see a lot of people. I would say some of the people. Since I have a large chunk, I'm looking at more than, so far we're expecting more than 50 charging entities to be on the platform. As I might check yesterday, we have more than 40. So in percentage terms, about 70–80% are on the platform. So the 20 who are not a lot of people. They are some few people.
No. What I meant by a lot of people, I was saying that there may be people who are having issues being charged.
Yes.
So
that may continue for a while, insofar as the charging entities are still configuring their internal system. So once you encounter such discomfort, you call your charging entity to complain.
Well, how far have you gone with third-party transactions?
What are you calling third-party transactions, if I may ask?
What does a GRA call third-party?
We don't have anything like that. We don't have anything like that.
So it's not allowed?
I don't know what you mean by third-party transactions, because we don't have anything like that on the E-levy.
Okay. So clearly we've established previously that you're not allowed to go to the merchant and say, put this amount on another person's mobile money on my behalf. We've been told that that's not allowed.
That's not permissible.
Yes. And we had, the last time I had one of your colleagues on the show, we actually had a mobile money agent calling to say, in fact, no, not calling. My colleague went out and he admitted that when they were engaged by the telcos to do this mobile money business, they were told that they were not allowed to do that.
Yes.
Okay. But he suggested that based on what has been the practice over time, would there be any considerations, or we are still saying that it's a no-no for that?
It's still a no-no, because the agreement they have with the charging entities states clearly. You can download that of some of the major telcos. It's clearly in there that you're not supposed to do that. And also following the Bank of Ghana Know Your Customer guidelines on anti-money laundering, even when you go to the banking hall, you send a driver to go and deposit your money. They always want to have information on the third party captured, so that when there is dispute, you can trace all the parties that are involved in this transaction. If I go to the agent, give money and walk away, along the line, if the money doesn't get to the destination, when you call your charging entity, there's no record of you.
It's great that you mentioned the bank instance where provision is made for the third party, and that's why I'm asking. Yes. I mean, we've been doing this, we implemented this, we're going on to the common platform, which is not fully integrated yet, and I want to believe that there have been consultations, negotiations, and that's why I asked how far with third-party negotiations, because some have third-party transactions, because some have said, look, it's something that happens. There are people who may genuinely need the mobile money agent to send money on their behalf. Is there room, is there provision for that?
So let's understand the role of every state institution. GRA is not into anti-money laundering, especially in this particular space. There is an institution that does that, that's the Bank of Ghana.
Because they've been
to the specific instance of where their rules on anti-money laundering.
You're talking about the E-levy implementation. You're part of the
for E-levy.
I'm asking if anything like that has come up in your discussions, in your review of the processes so far, and how people have come with feedback, and if there's any room.
So for us, we operate with other sister institutions. If the law says it is not permissible, we agree. It is not permissible. So customers are not supposed to do that. First, because there is an agreement between the agent and their telco that they are not supposed to do that. Two, there is a KYC from the BOG that says you shouldn't do that. So customers are not supposed to do that. Now, the next question is, how do you enforce? all these sister state institutions have to join, because GRA's business is not going to enforce people not to get involved in anti-money laundering. We've also talked to the charging entities. Can we use technology to enforce? We are looking into...
I was coming to that because your colleague I had the last time when we had this discussion, a month after the E-levy's implementation, he mentioned something about a certain system that will check the radius of the device.
Geofencing.
Yes, so the device that is sending and the device that is receiving to be sure that they're within a certain radius. Have you kick-started that?
No, that wouldn't be done by us. That should be done by the charging entities. So we've talked to them if they could explore the possibility of using technology to mitigate.
And what's their response? Have they started that?
I don't think any of them have started, but at least they are aware that the government is uncomfortable, that we are having people having to move their transfers as a result of change of behavior because of the E-levy.
They're trying to avoid.
To avoid, So we've engaged them. I believe if we really have to do it, all the parties, that's the ministry, the Bank of Ghana, the charging entities, we all have to agree that that is the way forward. Because if one charging entity implements and another doesn't, that becomes a competitive advantage of one charging entity over the other. So it needs to be holistic. I understand the Chamber of Telcos are also aware. So if we have to do it, I believe we have to do it together. We don't have to let one start and leave the other. All of them have to go in together and implement.
This morning, you've been very firm on sticking to your job as GRA and not trying to comment about any other issues. But who will? Because the GRA, you receive revenue, right?
We are responsible for receiving revenue.
Receiving the revenue for the state, on behalf of the state. So who, in this whole E-levy implementation, who will announce to us how much we've received so far? Who will?
So let me quote the law for you.
Okay.
So the E-levy Act, Section 7, which says submission of reports. If I may read.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Section 7.1, the Ghana Revenue Authority shall submit to the minister. Minister here in this law refers to Minister of Finance. Quarterly reports on the performance of the revenues from the electronic transfer levy not later than 1 month after the end of each quarter.
Okay.
The minister, Section 2, the minister responsible for finance shall submit to Parliament a report on the funds accruing from the electronic levy transfers. A, in the mid-year review of the budget of that financial year, covering the first half of the financial year, and B, within 2 months after the end of the financial year, covering the second half of the immediately preceding financial year. So
okay, and so
the position of the law.
And so first quarter means first quarter
of the year.
But this one, considering when we started.
So it means that it will be due in after the second quarter.
After the second quarter. So you would forward it to the minister would say it in his, okay, so that's just an answer for all of you who want to know how much you've been able to accrue. We know that there was a publication by Gabi Asari-Ochedako on the fact that we've not been able to accrue what we wanted to. We don't know the exact figures, so but at least we know that the target has not been met. He says we're doing about 10% of it, and so we know that's why the IMF came in and all that. But that's not for Mr. Marco to answer. I'm just giving you some information. So for those of you who are still wondering, well, the law has been quoted. You need to exercise a bit of patience and wait for the GRA to forward to the minister, for the minister to forward, to read it to Parliament in the mid-year budget review. But is there any other thing you'd like our audience to know on this particular phase of the E-levy implementation?
So yes, for every new system, you don't have it 100% when you try. So we started on Friday. Today is day 5. We've received some customer complaints. We want the public to be patient. If you receive anything that you're not supposed to, if you're charged that you're not supposed to be charged, please report to your charging entity. If you are still not having enough response, then you can refer to the GRA on our toll-free number 0800 900 110, 0800 900 110. That is if you are not getting the resolution from your charging entity. But your first point of call is your charging entity for some either wrongful charges or some other thing you don't understand.
All right. So there's a question on our live Facebook stream, and it's from Aliu Musa. He says, if you go into a shop to buy, you will pay VAT after the purchase. Are you going to pay E-levy as well? If that is so, is that not double taxation? I'm sure he joined the conversation midway. So just rehash the points, just to answer his this question on people who pay via Momo when they go to shops to purchase items.
So on his direct question, he says if the person is registered for VAT, the law has exempted such a person. You know, the law says that if the seller, who we call in the law merchant, is registered for VAT or income tax, then the customers need not be passed on the E-levy. So that has been protected. Unless the person is charging the VAT wrongfully, he's not registered for the VAT on our side, but he's telling the public that he is. That is misleading, and if such a customer is found out, we will deal with that customer by law. But in the E-levy law, those who are already registered for income tax and VAT, their customers don't get to pay E-levy.
So, I mean, in simple terms, if you go to a shop and you pay via any electronic means and you receive a notification and you see E-levy and you are being charged and you don't see zero, it means that that particular company or that particular person's business is not registered. And so you either, it's your choice to go ahead to pay, or you find another person who is registered, and so the E-levy will not be. But on the side of the law, businesses must register and pay income tax. Yes. So as responsible citizens, what do you expect from us when we visit shops where we are being charged the E-levy?
You could take the advantage when you see the fact that they are not registered because you are getting an E-levy amount, and report to us through the 0800 900 that I have been at this shop. This is the name of the shop, and I am being charged E-levy. Please, GRA, these are the details of the customer. This is even the number they've advertised on their shop. Please take these details and let your compliance team follow up.
You're not able to give us figures on how much we accrued, but are you able to tell us if there have been a reduction in transactions over the time?
Won't be able to do that either.
But is that stated in the law, or you just won't be able to do that?
I won't be able to do that because we've asked the charging entities to report on each month's transaction a month after. So for transactions that happened in May, Common Platform was not available. We couldn't have seen. So it lies on the charging entities to report to us. Now, until we put all charging entities who are compliant by the law together and do our analytics, we wouldn't see the bigger picture. And it takes a bit of time to finish with the analysis because it ended last week, Thursday. We are receiving, some are late filers, so they are filing late. Then our analytic team would now put the reports together and see the pattern. But whilst we wait, BOG also have the responsibility of reporting the monthly performance of mobile money on their website. So for those who are still eager, they can go to BOG and leave GRA for now.
Isaac Amako is a member of the E-levy Technical Committee. Isaac, I'll keep you in studio because I know that people will be calling in and there will be questions. But there's some flooding in major parts of Accra, just for you to know, so that you protect yourself as you step out this morning. But while we are talking about the E-levy, let me just let you know, the E-levy will not be scrapped despite the IMF bailout, and this is according to government, okay? So the Finance Ministry has disclosed that government will not terminate the 1.5% levy on electronic transactions despite its application to the IMF for economic assistance. This was contained in a statement from the ministry on Tuesday addressing key questions regarding government's ongoing engagement with the fund. Regarding the controversial levy, the ministry explained that government will add the proceeds from the levy to the support from the IMF in order to shore up the country's economic fortunes. Addressing the question of whether the levy will be scrapped, the ministry said, quote, no. the IMF lending to Ghana will be for balance of payments of support, i.e. to shore up the international reserves. Quote, government is committed to ensuring the smooth operationalization of all taxes, including the E-levy, to ensure that in addition to the IMF's resources, government can continue to support its developmental goals on its own while ensuring that tax to GDP ratio increases to the peer range of 16% to 18%. It continued, that's the statement by the Ministry of Finance. An IMF-supported program is likely to encourage the government to investigate the factors hindering the success of the E-levy, including by providing technical assistance if needed, and come out with strategies to improve it. The Finance Ministry also noted that other tax measures could be considered for the medium term. So there's more to that story on mydrawingline.com, just by way of information, because we are discussing the E-levy. Government says, yes, we are going to the IMF, but no, they are not scrapping the E-levy. So we'll be putting up our numbers there quickly, and kindly join the conversation. Let me know what you have to say. If you have any questions for Mr. Amoako, just stick to the technical issues and GRSOs. And also, let me know where you are and the situation with the floods. But while I wait for you to call, hello, Ghana. Happy moment is here. I'll be back to tell you more about something that's happening with regards to the World Cup and how you can be part of the happy moment. But for now, let's hear your calls. Well, let's storm World Cup Qatar 2020 with Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water from Casapreco Company Limited. Simply buy your favorite Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water. Text the 4-digit unique number on the neck of the bottle to short code *780# option 2. Yes, *780# option 2, and follow the prompts on all networks for free. Be one of the lucky winners to this year's World Cup in the monthly draw. You can also win TVs, fridges, microwave ovens, mobile phones, home theaters, free drinks, and more instantly. Please don't waste time. Grab a bottle of Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water, and let's storm Qatar this World Cup. This promotion is on the NLA Caritas platform, and this advert is FDA approved. Terms and conditions apply. Now, a person who is not required to register for VAT may voluntarily apply to be registered. A voluntary applicant shall be registered as a taxable person where the Commissioner General is satisfied that the person has a fixed place of abode or business, or reasonably believes that the person keeps proper accounting records related to any business activity carried on by that person, and the person submits regular and reliable tax returns, or reasonably believes that the person is a fit and proper person to be registered. And we'll take your calls now, and I'll be back to tell you more about what's happening. Ray joins us. Hello, Ray. Where are you calling us from? Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Do I have Ray from Aplau?
Yeah, this is Ray from Aplau.
Hello, good morning, Ray. Can you speak up a little, please?
Yeah, good morning. I'm listening to you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I want to share my thoughts on E-levy.
You want to share your thoughts
good morning.
on?
Can you hear me?
Please speak up.
Yeah, I want to share my thoughts on the E-levy.
Please go ahead.
Well, on E-levy.
Please go ahead. Hello? Well, looks like we lost him there. We have Michael from Dansaman. Hello, Michael. Good morning, Michael.
Yeah, so it's about E-levy. We still have a lot of inconsistencies. We are registered company, we are VAT registered, and we have a merchant number which is linked to our company account. So day in, day out, we push pull to do transactions. Now, all of a sudden, anytime we are pulling money from, since the Friday, we're pulling money from the company account to the mobile wallet, we are charged E-levy. It doesn't make sense.
You're charged the E-levy?
Yes. And when you are making a transaction from your personal mobile money, paying to our Momo Pay, the merchant, the 6-digit merchant code, there's E-levy charge on that, which shouldn't be.
And this started after the migration or the integration
from
on the
Friday,
single?
I noticed on the weekend.
Okay.
And
all right.
I just tried one more time before even calling you, and it's the same problem.
Okay. Isaac, did you get his concerns? Okay. All right. We will address it shortly. Thank you very much, Michael, for calling.
All right,
we have Muhazi calling us from Enum. Hello, Muhazi. Let's hear you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to find out, as a clarification, which is in the public domain, that those mobile money vendors, whatever their transaction, they are going to be added to the E-levy so that they will charge. So anybody who go there to do business with them can also pay the E-levy, or they will also pay the E-levy. I want to find out whether it is true or not.
When you say business with them, what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, what I mean is that I heard it that they themselves were complaining that very soon the vendors themselves are going to be charged with the E-levy.
Okay.
So I want to find out how true it is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for calling, Muhazi. Do we have another call on the line? Oh, well, while we wait for more calls, you can take Michael's question and then address Muhazi's.
Yeah, so Michael, I would advise you quickly call your charging entity and give out the details of the transaction so they can go through and see exactly what is happening. Without knowing the details behind it, will not be able to know why you are being charged. According to you, you have a merchant number and then you have linked it to your company, but you're being charged. Normally, if you have a merchant number, it means that that merchant number on the platform of your charging entity should have your taxpayer identification number if it is corporate. If it is not corporate and it's an individual that is behind it, even if it is one of the directors, and they have used their Ghana card. But when you go to the company's account, they've used the taxpayer identification number. Ghana card, TIN number is not a match. The company is a different entity legally from the director's Ghana personal number. So if a director moves funds from his bank account to a company that he's a director of, no, he'll still be charged because the company is seen as a different person and the director is also seen as a different person. It is only
so in this case, how do you address it? If you are the same person and you want to be identified as the same person?
It is not possible.
Okay.
Because the law says so.
Okay.
The individual is a director in his own right. The company as a legal entity is a human, another entity in its right. The law doesn't permit that.
Okay.
So you can't do that.
Okay, let's take...
That is assuming.
Assuming, yes, of course. So let's respond to Muhazi's concern about...
will mobile money vendors be charged now?
Okay, so Muhazi, straight to the point is a no. Let's hear from Abdul in Kumasi. Good morning to you, Abdul. Let's hear you, sir.
Please, I want to share my thoughts on the E-levy.
Please go ahead.
Please, I wanted to want the Minister of Finance past month, the E-levy that would be good and provide their...
Abdul, hello, Abdul. Sorry, I can hardly hear you. Can you speak loudly and clearly?
I said that I wanted to know the amount of money that they had on the E-levy last month and why they are sending to the IMF.
Okay, so Isaac cannot answer that question. He's not here to represent government, and he's a member of the technical committee of the GRA. We've explained earlier, and he's quoted the law, that per the law, the GRA is supposed to report to the finance minister, giving details on how much we've accrued quarterly. The finance minister will let us know through Parliament when he delivers the mid-year budget review And so that's to answer that question. Michael in Kaswa, good morning. Let's hear you.
With the flood,
okay.
I think we have to blame ourselves for the flood. I don't blame the government. I don't blame the past government. It looks like we are all putting things in order for the flood. That is my understanding. But with the E-levy, the government is implementing the E-levy, and now the government is going to IMF. But my understanding is the E-level will help the economy, to boost the economy. But now implementing the E-levy, now government is going to IMF, which is which?
Did you just join the show? Because I read a statement from the Ministry of Information. The story is on myjoyonline.com. You can go and read it. But basically what government is saying is that, yes, we are going to the IMF, but no, we are not scrapping the E-levy because it will help us, deal with our general economic situation. The IMF support is to help us with our international reserves. So, well, that's it. That's what government is saying this morning, Michael. Thank you for joining the program anyway.
Thank you. All right.
So, yeah, the last person who called from Kumasi, I answered that question on what government is earning so far. But finally, before you go, that is if you're not receiving any calls in relation to the E-levy, what should we expect as we move forward in the coming days with regards to the E-levy, and when we should see a final integration? You've mentioned that about 80% of the charging entities have migrated onto the common platform. There are some 20% who've written to the GRA saying that we have a bit of internal issues, give us some time. But when is the GRA saying that, look, this is the real deadline, we're not going to extend it again after this time?
In fact, we haven't extended it for anyone. They're still required to integrate to the common platform. We will be issuing out our official letters to those charging entities and refer to the sections of the law that make it an offense not to have come on board, because we've given them enough time. From 1st of May, we didn't join the common platform because there was the same concern from some charging entities that they are trying to configure their internal system. So for the GRA, there's no extension. Every charging entity is supposed to be connected. If the notices go out and they're still not connected, then we would have to resort to the legal sanctions in the law.
All right, do we have any other caller on? If we do not, do we have any caller? All right, okay. So I will take a quick breather here. When we come back, we'll be doing more on the floods and also pick your thoughts on what we've been discussing this morning on the strike by the 4 teacher unions and also the floods happening in Accra. But for now, thank you so much, Isaac. Isaac Amwako is with the technical committee implementing the E-levy. Do stay. We'll be back with more. I'm grateful that you could stay with us here on the AM show. We are still taking your thoughts and asking you to share with us what's happening where you live, especially if you're in Accra, with regards to the flood. So what you see in your shorts is the flood situation in some parts of the city. Here is the Ring Road Central Road leading all the way up to Nima and connecting Circle, Kanishi. That entire stretch is what you're seeing now, which is flooded. And as usual, you can see a lot of filth floating on the flood waters. We've been told over time, choked drains contributes largely to the flooding situation we have in the country. Well, let's pick more of your calls. Stephen is joining us from the UK. Hello, Stephen. Good morning. Let's hear you.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. So I've got a concern regarding the E-levy charges on bank transfers.
Yeah, let's hear you.
Yeah, so I've got, I do an investment with the bank, and obviously, normally I do send a bulk of money from my personal bank account into the investment account. So I do understand that if you are doing a transfer from one bank account to different bank accounts, you do incur some E-levy charges on. So in this case, if I'm moving money from my bank account
there's
to
a limit,
my
Stephen.
bank's investment account, yes, please.
We are told there's a limit. It's 20,000.
Okay. But what I mean is, if the money is from my personal bank account to the bank's investment account, you know, normally with the banks, the investment it's just one account for everybody. So when you send the money into the investment account, they will down the 30 days on your personal client ID. So now the money is from my bank account to the bank's investment account. So in that case, do I get charged E-levy?
Have these two accounts been connected to your Ghana card?
My one is connected to my Ghana card, but the bank, that account belongs to the bank. That's the bank's investment account. It's a crowdfunding. They use for everybody, every investor.
Okay.
So one money goes into one bank account and they disperse into personal investment account.
All right, Stephen, I'm not too sure how that works with regards to the E-levy. And I wish that Isaac was here, but he just left us. But you can call to make some inquiries. You can find out from your bank, or you can call the GRA. The number to call is 0800 900 110. 0800 900 110 is a toll-free number, and I'm sure they will be able to address your concerns. But thank you for joining us this morning, Stephen. All right, so that's Stephen who shared his problem with that. All right, Michael is joining us from Musu. Good morning, Michael. Let's hear you. Well, I think we lost Michael there. Too bad. This morning, we've been talking about the strike by the teacher unions. We've been talking about floods in Accra. We've also been having a discussion on the E-levy. Do call to share your thoughts with us on these three major issues we've discussed here this morning. Thomas is joining the program. Hello, Thomas. Let's hear you. Hello, Thomas. It appears we have a challenge with our lines this morning. Really sad there. But we'll see if I'll be able to pick some of your comments on social media, because some of you have been reacting or commenting on our posts there. Hello, Francis. Good morning to you. Where are you calling us from?
Good morning, ma'am. I'm calling from Kumasi.
Kumasi. All right, great. Let's hear you, Francis. Hello, Francis. Hello? Oh, too bad, too bad. Clearly, there's a problem with our lines this morning. Francis was just making his contribution and we lost him there. But while I wait for you to call, parents and kiddies, the time to prove that you are the best and biggest kid chef in Ghana and beyond is here again. Join season 2 of the Big Chef reality show on Joy Prime and win amazing prizes. Let me tell you how. Record yourself cooking your best dish and send us the video on WhatsApp number 0551 575757. Pretty simple number, 0551 575757. The deadline for submission is on the 10th of July 2022, and we can't wait to see the amazing talents this season brings. It's the second edition of the Big Chef reality show. The Joy Prime Big Chef reality show is sponsored by Fortune Rice, always on point, just like mommy. Fried sunflower oil, enjoy the goodness in tasty meals. Top Choco is chocolatey and Flora tissues, quality tissues for everyone. Big Chef this July only on Joy Prime. So for parents who are watching, you can prompt your kids who love to cook to be part of this. Do I have another call on the line? Well, it appears that I don't. Do I? All right, Francis is back online. Hello, Francis, let's hear you.
Okay, I want to share my thoughts on the E-levy.
Please go ahead.
Okay, is it the main problem about Ghanaians having problems about the rates? The rates. You just imagine if someone is testing you amount of, 10,000 Ghana cedis.
Hello, Francis.
Amount of, 10,000 Ghana cedis. The rate at which they will deduct the money, it's better than, you touch that place. Hello?
Francis, I don't know. You're listening to yourself on the television, and so it's creating a lot of feedback. You should listen to me over the phone so that we can speak in real time. So if you can just mute your television set and go ahead and let's hear what you have to say. Well, too bad. We lost Francis there, but I think that we'll have to end the calls at this point. It appears we have a problem with our lines. But thank you so much for joining our program this morning. It's been a real pleasure serving you. Benjamin and myself are always excited to bring you the best morning show every morning. And we appreciate that you wake up to join us. Do join us again, same time tomorrow at 6 a.m. We start the show and we bring you what is important and what matters to you. For now, you want to stay with us here on your most credible news source, Joy News. Up next is News Desk. Do stay.